Chapter 179. Muyu didn't leave, he chose to stay. Even if he went to find Luo Shang now, it would be useless. Luo Shang and the others couldn't save Feng Haochen, and Muyu would only be immersed in cultivation. It would be a fool's dream to fight against the mysterious threefold palace. Withered Tree Evergreen was a very mysterious person. His cultivation was so high that he could take Muyu's life with a sneeze. However, not only did he know Muyu's identity, but he also secretly rescued Muyu from floating Immortal Island. For an unknown purpose, he wanted to take Muyu as his disciple. Even though Withered Tree Evergreen kept saying that he and Feng Haochen had an irreconcilable hatred, Muyu always felt that this strange old man didn't want Feng Haochen to die. Instead, he wanted to save him. Heavenly demon fruit's use? This was the first sentence Withered Tree said to Muyu every day. The heavenly demon fruit is a kind of all-purpose herb. When you can't find a certain herb when refining a pill, you can cut a small piece of the heavenly demon fruit as a substitute. It can better dissolve the resistance between various herbs, allowing them to be perfectly combined. The heavenly demon tree only bears 2 fruits every 100 years. It's very rare. Muyu said a long paragraph of words with extreme guilt. He felt guilty because Withered Tree told him that if he wanted Feng Haochen to live, he had to restore his Dantian. Feng Haochen became the array core of the immortal confining prison at the cost of his cultivation. His Dantian was severely damaged, which caused his cultivation to drop. Using the 9 Chi Soul cleansing flower and the underworld grass to refine the first essence Yang restoration pill, Feng Haochen's Dantian could be restored. Withered Tree originally wanted to use the heavenly demon fruit as a replacement because this flower only existed in ancient records and was now extinct. However, the heavenly demon fruit ended up in Muyu and Xiao Shuai's stomachs, and Bai Liang was wasted. You need to find these 2 on your own. As for where to find them, I'll tell you later. This was what the dead tree said when he was angry, because neither of these 2 were easy to find. Muyu had no other choice now. Not only did Kumu teach him the Poison Sutra, he also taught him some knowledge about Xian formations. Dead Tree's understanding of formations was quite thorough. When Muyu said that his master was also proficient in formations, Dead Tree showed a trace of disdain. His kind of formations are not worth mentioning. As soon as the Dead Tree mentioned Muyu's master, his face was full of contempt and ridicule. He really didn't know how the true gods of the 3 continents had offended this green-haired old man. He was always belittled as if he was nothing. Muyu decided not to refute. The grudges of the previous generation had nothing to do with him. Xian formations was just some simple knowledge about formations recorded by Kumu. It wasn't very profound, but it was enough to broaden Muyu's horizons. Feng Haochen had never taught him about formations because of some misgivings. However, he didn't have anything to worry about with Kumu. When Kumu explained Xian formations to Muyu, he spoke word by word. After Muyu finished listening to the introduction of Xian formations, he felt like he had aged forever. However, he still learned a lot in the end. For example, in the history of formations, there were smart people who used the arrangement of the constellations in the sky to set up formations. The method of using cultivators to replace the constellations was almost unimaginable when dealing with Yumeng. Kumu explained the most basic 8 trigrams formation to him. Muyu only had a rough understanding of the 8 trigrams formation from Elder Sun, but Kumu directly let Muyu understand the deeper level of the 8 trigrams formation. In order to let Muyu remember the positions of the 8 trigrams and what they represented, Kumu purposely created an 8 trigrams formation that was guarded by demonic beasts. Muyu, on the other hand, had stepped directly into the death gate of the 8 trigrams and was almost eaten by an out-of-body flood dragon. Since then, he had lost interest in the 8 trigrams array. Muyu had come into contact with a lot of formations so far. From the mountain protection formation that could withstand nascent soul stage cultivators, to the heaven and earth formation that trapped the entire Mayan mountain range, to the teleportation formation that Yu Meng used to escape from the immortal confining prison. Each of these formations had their own merits and each formation was quite powerful. The formations that Ku Mu and Chongqing set up in the valley were also very mysterious. For example, the Ghost Labyrinth formation was solved by Mu Yu's cleverness. He had come into contact with a lot of formations, but he couldn't understand the rules behind them. Now that he suddenly met Ku Mu and Chongqing, who were very knowledgeable about formations, he couldn't help but want to learn about formations. However, Ku Mu seemed to want Mu Yu to focus on the Poison Sutra. He already knew that Mu Yu had the ability of Spirit Lord Yu Meng in his body, so he thought that understanding the characteristics of various herbs would be more helpful for Mu Yu to find the 9-Chi soul-cleansing flower and netherworld herb in the future. Therefore, Mu Yu could only follow Ku Mu's wishes to learn about all kinds of strange plants and test the effects of mixing different kinds of plants together. It was funny. He was a person who could control plants, but his knowledge of plants was not as good as Ku Mu and Chongqing. You are, Ku Mu reminded Mu Yu when he suddenly realized that Mu Yu had added a few extra herbs while guiding him to mix his 100 poison powder. I know it's wrong, I know. I just want to know what fun effects these few herbs will have when added together. Mu Yu said indifferently. Boom. Mu Yu already knew the effects of this combination. His face was covered in dirt from the explosion of the herbs, and a few blisters appeared on his face. Half of his face was swollen. The 100 poison powder used all kinds of poisons. Mu Yu's reckless experiment was just looking for trouble. Mu Yu screamed and rushed into the celestial demon tree to detoxify the poison. Ku Mu's face revealed a smile that was hard to hide. Mu Yu realized that he was quite kind when he smiled. Really, really, really? You really envy my ability to control trees, don't you? Ku Mu was not surprised that Mu Yu had Yu Meng's ability. He seemed to be very clear about what Feng Haochen had done. Mu Yu had been with Ku Mu for a few months, and he had gradually figured out this strange old man's temperament. This green-haired old man was actually not a bad person. It was only because he researched poisons that people kept a respectful distance from him. He always spoke slowly, and it was unknown what was wrong with him. When he was in a good mood, he would stutter, and when he was in a bad mood, he would speak fluently. Mu Yu had already learned how to figure out this old man's thoughts and then finish his words for him. If he waited for this old man to say 2 words, he would have to wait until the flowers withered. Mu Yu was very satisfied with his body that was impervious to poison. Then, he became Ku Mu's guinea pig to test the poison. Come and try it. Ku Mu handed a small bottle to Mu Yu. Again, Mu Yu had the urge to curse. Ku Mu used to test the poison on the demon beasts in the valley. With Mu Yu, this experimental subject that could talk, those demon beasts were relieved. They did not have to risk their lives anymore. 2 days ago, Mu Yu was forced to drink a cup of yellow liquid medicine by Ku Mu, causing him to have diarrhea for a whole day. Most importantly, Ku Mu did not allow him to detoxify the poison. He said that he wanted to record the characteristics of the poison. It was not until yesterday that he let Mu Yu detoxify the poison in his body. Last time, 2 days ago, you made me have diarrhea, and you said it was the last time. Mu Yu said angrily. Sky demon fruits effect? Ku Mu's mouth slightly raised. Okay. Mu Yu admitted defeat. When he didn't want to cooperate, Withered Tree Evergreen would deliberately bring this up. Mu Yu wanted to rescue his master from the Moyun mountain range, but with his current ability, it was impossible for him to do so. The dead tree knew all of this like the back of his hand. Moreover, the dead tree's original intention was to let Mu Yu find the 9-Chi soul cleansing flower and underworld grass to help Feng Haochen recover his cultivation. Since Mu Yu had chosen to believe in the dead tree, he could only suffer in silence, unable to say anything. Mu Yu drank the disgusting yellow liquid medicine. Soon, his whole body became dry. Then he began to cough, his heartbeat slowed down, and his whole body became weak. This was not a big problem for him. He just needed to use his spiritual power to disperse it. However, Ku Mu had confined all his spiritual power. What? Feeling? Nausea, retching, wanting to vomit, sleepy, uncomfortable, want to die. Mu Yu stuck out his tongue. He felt like he was struggling in hell. He was clearly breathing in big mouthfuls of air, but he still did not feel suffocated. Okay, drink it. Kumu handed a bottle of red liquid medicine to Muyu. Muyu rolled his eyes and swallowed the red liquid medicine. Then the uncomfortable feeling in his body gradually faded. Kumu looked at Muyu, who had become lively again. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "The plague powder is effective." "Old man, why did you make plague poison? Do you want to kill those mortals?" Muyu jumped up. When he heard that Kumu was trying to make plague poison, he immediately felt that he was helping the devil. Plague was ineffective against cultivators, but mortals were almost unstoppable. That bad?" Kumu glanced at Muyu. He was very dissatisfied. "No. The Kumu Valley you made poisoned so many people to death. How can you say it's not bad?" Muyu almost pointed at Kumu's nose and scolded him. "They don't have ability. Come in." Kumu began to explain the reason one word at a time. His speed was surprisingly slow. "Old man, your enemy is my master." Muyu naturally could not wait for him to explain. He found that every time he talked about Feng Haochen, Kumu would be irritated and even angry. When he was irritated, he would speak more quickly. "That bastard." Kumu cursed in a low voice. "Why did others come in here if they don't have the ability? They deserved it. If you didn't come here by chance and pass my test alive, I wouldn't have bothered with you at all." Kumu said that he set up so many checkpoints because he would encounter similar difficulties when he went to pick the Netherworld grass in the future. He wanted to choose a person who could pass these obstacles as his successor and let his successor go to that place to pick the Netherworld grass. As for why Kumu did not go there himself, Kumu did not say. "Then why do you make so many poisons every day and run out from time to time? Are you looking for living people to experiment on?" Muyu asked. Kumu often left the valley every few days and then sealed it, not letting Muyu go out. No one knew where he went. "Yes," Kumu said straightforwardly. "Then I won't test for you anymore," Muyu said angrily. Kumu suddenly laughed. "Every day I was angered by you. Finally, I also saw when you were angered." Because Kumu stuttered, he could not get any advantage when talking to Muyu, who had sharp tongue. Every time, he would be angered to the point of stomping his feet. It was not easy to see that he had angered Muyu to the point of stomping his feet. He immediately felt very relieved. Originally, no matter how Kumu treated Muyu, Muyu always had an indifferent attitude and would not be angry. However, when it came to the problem of a mortal's life, he could not sit back and do nothing. Muyu was stunned. This old man said so much just to deliberately anger him. Chapter 180. "Okay, I'll agree to go anywhere. Let's go," Muyu said excitedly. Now, he was willing to fight with those nascent soul stage youths again. He was bored to death after staying in this place for a few months. Dead Tree was not someone who could relieve his boredom. Little Shuai and Old Dragon Vine only knew how to curse each other with Big Earthworm and Little Mouse every day. He couldn't even find someone who could talk to him normally. "You have to in my disciple's name?" Sure. I can even be your master." Muyu couldn't wait to go out. Although Dead Tree didn't mention anything about accepting a disciple in the past few months, he really did teach Muyu as his disciple. Dead Tree directly ignored Muyu's words. He was already used to Muyu's glib tongue. In fact, his temper had improved a lot after staying with Muyu for half a year. This was because Muyu liked to joke around every day. If Dead Tree cared too much about Muyu, he would be angered to death every day. The loss outweighed the gain. Leaving the valley and breathing in the fresh air was really a luxury for Muyu. He couldn't help but look at the green mountains and clear waters in the distance. Occasionally, he would pass by an ordinary house. From time to time, he would also see cultivators flying in the sky. This kind of free life was what he wanted. Dragon Vine didn't come out. Only Little Shuai and Muyu came out to eat. Dead Tree would bring them some food every time he came back. Unfortunately, the food basically went into Little Shuai's stomach. Little Shuai, this big eater, couldn't fill his stomach at all. "I want to eat drumsticks. This time, I want to buy a lot of drumsticks." Little Shuai was suffocating. For half a year, he hadn't really eaten to his heart's content. Even if he ate to his heart's content, he wouldn't be full. Dead Tree took Muyu to a remote village. This small village was a bit lifeless. The air above the village was filled with resentment. Something felt wrong. Plague, Dead Tree said. Plague was a fatal infectious disease for ordinary people. It was also the biggest disease killer for ordinary people. Are we here to save them? Muyu walked into the village and found that many people had dark circles under their eyes and were coughing nonstop. Some people had already been carried out on straw mats, and the people carrying them were also pale. Your mission is to save them. I got it. Muyu finished for Kumu. His expression was somewhat grave. He knew the cause of the plague, how it destroyed the body's tissues, and how it caused complications. Muyu had read in the Book of Poisons that there was a type of poison that was made from the blood of plague victims. However, Muyu was a little surprised. Why would Kumu want him to save someone? In his impression, people like Deadwood who played with poison should only harm people. Old man, you didn't cause this plague, did you? Kumu glanced at Muyu. He knew what Muyu was thinking. People who play with poison don't necessarily come to harm people. Don't tell me you use poison to save people. Muyu felt that he didn't know much about Kumu, even though he had been with him for half a year. My poison only saves ordinary people. Kumu walked forward and touched the forehead of child. The little girl was curled up in a chair and shivering. Her breathing was quite slow, and her vitality was slowly flowing out of her body. So you're a good person. Muyu's heart relaxed. He remembered that Kumu often went out. Every time you leave the valley, do you come to save ordinary people? Kumu didn't answer him. He just waved at Muyu to come over. Save her, Kumu said. Kumu did leave the valley every time to save people. In fact, he wasn't a bad person at all. He studied poison, but his purpose was to use poison to save people. He advocated the way of fighting poison with poison. However, people didn't like poison, so people who played with poison thought very badly of people who played with poison. Muyu felt that he had to change his view of Kumu. He carefully recalled the introduction of plague in Kumu's poison scripture. The little girl's plague was a type of plague caused by rats. Kumu mentioned that to eliminate a kind of poison, a more poisonous herb could be used. Poisonous herbs were also fatal to ordinary people. In the detoxification method, there was a cure for the plague. Spirit grass for 1 coin, burr root for 5 coins, Lu canal for 2 coins. Muyu had memorized most of the poison scripture in the past half a year. He immediately said these herbs. Kumu nodded with satisfaction and threw a chinquin bag to Muyu. There were all kinds of herbs stored in it, just like a bag of herbs. These herbs could be made into deadly poisons, and they could also be made into detoxification prescriptions. It all depended on how they were used. The plague powder that was made for Muyu was tested on Muyu. Muyu now knew why Kumu did this. Xiao Shui was silent. It knew how to get rid of these diseases. It had its own unique talent in this area. Kumu's detoxification method was highly recommended. The way of fighting poison with poison was often easier to cure. However, this method required careful control of the composition of each poison. Once there was a mistake, it would kill people. The method of making poison was the same as the method of refining pills. Refining pills was more for the cultivation of cultivators, while making poison, according to Kumu's words, was to save people. Although the poison scripture recorded the method of making all kinds of poisons, each poison had a detailed detoxification method. In fact, it was a complete detoxification book, but outsiders didn't know about it. Muyu worked very hard to make the antidote. He didn't want to see so many innocent lives die like this. Ordinary people didn't have spiritual power in their bodies, so Muyu couldn't use his own spiritual power to treat them. Xiao Shui also couldn't. Old man, I'm sorry. I thought too badly of you. Muyu instantly felt that Kumu's image was great. Call me master. Kumu snorted. Muyu laughed dryly and said, No, I don't want to. These are 2 different things. Brat. Kumu himself also began to make the antidote for these ordinary people. Sometimes, he would stare at Muyu and ponder. It was unclear what he was thinking. However, at this moment, a dense inchi suddenly rose from outside the village. Muyu looked at Kumu in confusion. Kumu raised his head, frowned, and disappeared with Muyu. Two ghastly people walked into the village. Their bodies were filled with yin qi, and a huge aura shrouded the whole village. Muyu was startled in the dark. These were people from the Gate of Hell. This is the 5th plague village. There's still not enough souls. One of the people from the Gate of Hell scanned the whole village and shook his head. Ancestor Gui Jiuming ordered us to find 1,000 ordinary people's souls. Including this village, there's still more than 100 missing. Another person from the Gate of Hell said, "It's a pity that we can't directly kill these ordinary people. Naturally, the souls of dead ordinary people are pure. It's really troublesome. We can only secretly make plagues to collect souls. This is really troublesome." Muyu was extremely angry. This plague was actually spread by people from the Gate of Hell. Muyu turned his head to look at Kumu, but Kumu had already disappeared. He then turned to the people from the Gate of Hell. The two people from the Gate of Hell were already lying on the ground. Their bodies were green, and Kumu was looking at them with a murderous expression. Muyu didn't expect Kumu to be so decisive. The two people from the Gate of Hell had died very tragically. Their bodies had turned green, and they had died from poison. No wonder there are so many plagues running rampant. As expected, it's the Gate of Hell's doing, Kumu said in a deep voice. Then what should we do? Muyu also felt very angry. The people from the Gate of Hell had actually done such a heinous thing. Thinking back to when Gue Xianyue wanted to obtain the souls of millions of people in Mayan Mountain Range, the Gate of Hell really deserved to die. Kumu opened his hand, and a pale and illusory soul was captured in his hand. "Who are you?" It was one of the disciples from the Gate of Hell. Kumu only left him. The other disciple from the Gate of Hell and their twins had been directly killed by Kumu. "You people from the Gate of Hell have guts. You actually dare to kill mortals behind the back of the Sanshone," Muyu said angrily. The disciple from the Gate of Hell revealed a cruel smile. "The lives of mortals are nothing. The Sanshone only forbids us from killing cultivators. It doesn't have that many restrictions on mortals. What do you want the souls of so many mortals for?" Muyu said in a deep voice. He didn't want to argue with the people from the Gate of Hell. In the eyes of the Gate of Hell, there was no concept of life. Only souls were supreme. The disciple from the Gate of Hell shook his head. "Do you think I'll tell you? If you know what's good for you, hurry up and let me go. You should know the consequences of offending the Gate of Hell." Kumu didn't say anything. He just took out a white potion and weighed it in his hand. "I don't like interrogating." Kumu directly poured the white potion on the soul of the disciple from the Gate of Hell. The disciple from the Gate of Hell screamed, and then his eyes became dull. The cold expression on his face also faded. "Spiritual medicine of speech?" Muyu blinked. "This thing also works on souls." According to the poison scripture, there was a spiritual medicine of speech at the peak of the North Mountain. This herb was very poisonous. When one smelled its fragrance, the brain would not listen to orders. They would answer whatever others asked and would not be able to lie. The spiritual medicine of speech was the best way to interrogate prisoners. Unfortunately, this herb was very difficult to pick because no cultivator could resist its fragrance. For a poison expert like Kumu, it was a piece of cake for him to pick this herb. However, Muyu didn't know that this spiritual medicine of speech could also be used on souls. "I do, especially deal with the Gate of Hell." Kumu put away the bottle. "You ask." Muyu shrugged his shoulders. Letting the stuttering Kumu interrogate the prisoner was probably a torture for the prisoner. This kind of thing was naturally left to Muyu to deal with. "What do you want to do with the souls of mortals?" Muyu asked. Ancestor Gue 9 Lives wants to use the souls of mortals and demons to refine the 9 formations of possession. The disciple from the Gate of Hell answered stiffly. "What is the 9 formations of possession?" Muyu continued to ask. Ancestor Gue 9 Lives wants to possess the body of one of the 10 great demon kings of the demon race, the White Ape Demon King. The disciple from the Gate of Hell answered honestly. Legend has it that the body of the Demon King was an immortal existence. They turned from a demon beast into a human body. Their bodies had been tempered thousands of times and were already as hard as iron. If someone like the disciple from the Gate of Hell could possess the body of the Demon King, With their control over the soul, attaining eternal life would not be a dream. Mu Yu said in surprise, "Didn't the 10 great demon kings disappear thousands of years ago?" The 10 great demon kings cannot be killed. They were only sealed away by a powerful human expert. Ancestor Gui 9 Lives investigated the white ape demon king from the demon race. The disciple from the gate of hell suddenly stopped talking. His eyes widened, and then his soul slowly became illusory, turning into fragments and dissipating. "Old man, why did he disappear?" Mu Yu looked at Kumu in confusion. He had not obtained any useful information yet. Kumu slowly explained. This spiritual poison of speech could not last long on the soul. It was already good that he could say so much. Yu Meng's return is already a headache for the humans. Why are there also signs of the demon race's activity? Mu Yu thought back to Mount Fulong in the Moyen mountain range. Yu Meng had created a large group of demons and controlled them. The demon race had powerful combat strength. If they stood on Yu Meng's side and became his tool to deal with the humans, the consequences would be very serious. "Old man, is there anything we can do?" Mu Yu asked. Chapter 181. They couldn't do anything. The only thing they could do was to save as many mortals as possible. The Gate of Hell was a very ancient and mysterious force. It was deeply rooted in the 3 continents. It was impossible to eradicate them, let alone the 2 of them. Kumu's cultivation might be high, but it was unrealistic for him to fight against the entire Gate of Hell alone. If they saved the people in this village today, who knew which village would be harmed by the plague tomorrow? They couldn't take care of all the mortals in the 3 continents. If the Gate of Hell wanted to act secretly, it was impossible for them to stop it with their abilities. Mu Yu had no choice. The 3 continents were so big, and he was so insignificant. It was impossible for him to stop the Gate of Hell. In the past, the people of the Gate of Hell had their eyes on the millions of souls in the Moyen mountain range. Now, they wanted to kill thousands of mortal souls for the white ape demon king's possession of the 9 formations. This kind of cruel means was punishable by all. The Gate of Hell should have been erased from the 3 continents long ago. However, the Gate of Hell's ability was very effective against Yu Meng. This was also one of the reasons why the Gate of Hell continued to exist in the cultivation world. The days with the dead tree passed very quickly. Mu Yu often made the dead tree angry, just so that it would be easier for them to talk. Fortunately, Kumu didn't argue with Mu Yu. Otherwise, even 10 Mu Yu wouldn't be enough to deal with him. However, in this year, Mu Yu also unknowingly changed Kumu's personality. In the past, Kumu didn't speak more than 10 sentences in a month. Now, he could scold Mu Yu thousands of times a day. He was almost becoming a chatterbox. Mu Yu unknowingly stayed in Kumu's valley for a year. In this year, he and Kumu went everywhere to treat mortals. Not only did he have a deeper understanding of the Poison Sutra, but he also learned the formations well. Mu Yu's cultivation had been consolidated in the 3rd sky of the nascent soul stage. He also had a more thorough understanding of his own swordsmanship. Although the dead tree scoffed at everything about Feng Haochen, he did not express any opinions about his swordsmanship. This made Mu Yu feel that it was strange. The 9 guides of Heavenly Sword was the only thing about Feng Haochen that the withered tree did not deny. For Mu Yu, it was particularly painful for him to pretend to be serious with Kumu for a whole day, especially when he was an old man who was cold on the outside but passionate on the inside. Their conversation always ended with Kumu's cursing voice. Fortunately, he still had Little Shuai and Long Tongue, these 2 weirdos who bickered every day. He also found a way to relieve his boredom. He lured all the demonic beasts out of the river and then used Long Tongue's dragon might to make these demonic beasts obedient. In the end, he even trained these demonic beasts properly. He found 100 beasts array from the array that Deadwood taught him. This array was originally used to kill the demonic beasts and store the demonic spirits in the 100 beasts array. Then, the people who entered the array would be attacked by the demonic spirits. Mu Yu felt that this method was too cruel. The demonic spirits could be controlled by the array, but the demonic beasts could not be controlled. With Long Tongue, He could make these demonic beasts obedient in an orderly manner, so that the demonic beast attacks would not be scattered and disorderly. Muyu had nothing to do, so he formed a chorus according to the different cries of each demonic beast and formed a demonic beast singing group. Every night, Muyu would train his singing group, which made the dead tree very unhappy because his meditation was disturbed. Finally, one day, the dead tree interrupted Muyu's so-called valley chorus and told Muyu what to do next. The dead tree stuttered for a long time and told Muyu of very shocking news. "You are from the Danding sect?" When Muyu heard this news, he was really surprised. The Danding sect was full of alchemists, but how could a person who played with poison like Dead Tree come from the Danding sect? The dead tree snorted. He did not seem to have a good impression of the Danding sect. "Why do you want to take me to the Danding sect? Are you going to use poison to fight against medicinal pills?" Muyu made a fuss about nothing. "Why do you think I am looking for a successor?" This time, the dead tree spoke very smoothly. Muyu was dumbfounded. The dead tree spent a lot of effort to create a valley that could poison cultivators to death. His ultimate goal was to find a successor and then go back to the Danding sect to prove the superiority of poison. This was too laughable. "You must go to a place to find the netherworld grass and the 9-chi soul cleansing flower. If you find these two things, we must go to the Danding sect." The dead tree did not want Muyu to prove anything. His goal was still the same. He wanted to help Feng Haochen recover his cultivation and let Feng Haochen do something that the dead tree was unwilling to talk about. These two things can be found in the Danding sect. Muyu felt a little strange. If the Danding sect could find the dead tree, they could just go back and take it. Why would they still need Muyu? The dead tree shook his head and said, "You will know in the future." The Danding sect focused on alchemy and enjoyed a very high status in the 3 continents. Unfortunately, the dead tree's path of cultivation focused on poison and was not welcomed by the people of the Danding sect. In the end, he was unable to gain a foothold and chose to leave. The dead tree had always believed that there was no difference between making poison and alchemy. Alchemy also had its benefits and harms. The reason he studied poison was actually to practice medicine. Medical theory paid attention to treatment, while toxicology paid attention to injury. Medical theory started from the damaged tissues, while toxicology was the root of medical theory. Knowing how the body's tissues were damaged was equivalent to knowing the treatment method. Toxicology was the opposite of medical theory. However, because of the reputation of poison, poison masters were not welcomed. As cultivators, alchemists played the role of saving the dying and healing the injured, while poison masters were the black sheep. When talking about poison masters, the first thing that came to people's minds was the colorful poisonous fog that caused people to die miserably because poison masters used poison to injure people. However, when alchemists fought with others, the methods they used were actually the same as poison masters. They also used drugs to injure people, but their reputation was better. "I don't have much time left." The dead tree suddenly said an inexplicable sentence. Muyu laughed. "What? Are you going to enter the coffin?" Xiao Shuai interrupted from the side. "That's right, he's going to die." "What? That can't be true." Muyu had always believed Xiao Shuai's words without a doubt. Xiao Shuai was like a grim reaper. Whoever he said would die would not be able to live. He could see the difference in a cultivator's body, where they were injured, where they were unwell, at a glance. The dead tree stared at Muyu. "After I die, you must go to the Danding sect. I've already written a letter. You can just give this letter to the head of the Danding sect." "Are you kidding me? Old man, you hung me up yesterday, and you're already preparing for the funeral today?" Muyu realized something. "After I die, you'll be free. Shouldn't you be happy?" The dead tree snorted. He was a reclusive person. Because he researched poison, people stayed away from him, so he didn't have many friends. He knew that Muyu had always wanted to leave this place, but he didn't want to see his life's work go uninherited. Therefore, he firmly trapped Muyu here. There must be a way to save him, right? Muyu grabbed Xiao Shuai and asked seriously. Xiao Shuai was being shaken by Muyu and was somewhat dissatisfied. He said, "The spiritual energy in his body is filled with poison. It's already good that he's able to live until now. He's been bitterly holding on. Now, You probably can't hold on anymore. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Muyu was somewhat angry. Last time, didn't you warn me not to casually talk about other people's lives? So I also didn't say anything. After Xiao Shuai was treated rudely by the broken sword last time, Muyu told him not to casually talk about these things in the future. Today, if the dead tree didn't bring it up himself, Xiao Shuai also wouldn't have said it. You, simple-minded foodie, you could have told me secretly. Muyu was really defeated by Xiao Shuai. The dead tree frowned and said, "You don't have to pretend anymore. I'm your master's enemy, and I even locked you up here. You can't wait for me to die, right? Now, you've gotten your wish, haven't you? Hey, old man, don't think so badly of people." Muyu had always been clear about this matter. Although the dead tree always got angry at Muyu, it was also because Muyu always made him angry. The dead tree saved him from the floating immortal island. Just this matter alone was enough for Muyu to not complain about it. The dead tree was silent for a long time before he asked, "You don't hate me? Why would I hate you? I didn't lose anything now. I even learned so much about herbs and can be considered a little expert in setting up formations. You said you could save my master, and I've always believed you without a doubt because you know too much about my master. Since you know so much, it means that you were definitely good friends in the past, right?" "Enemy," the dead tree corrected. Muyu shook his head and said, "No one would save their enemy. You just have some unresolved misunderstanding, right?" "Enemy," the dead tree emphasized again. He glared at Muyu angrily and said, "The disciple of my enemy is also my enemy." "Stubborn old man." Muyu ignored him and asked Xiao Shuai, "Tell me the way to save him." Xiao Shuai hesitated for a long time and said, "Disperse his cultivation. Only by doing so can he live." Dispersing his cultivation meant destroying his dantian and making the spiritual power in his body disappear. From then on, he would become an ordinary person. As soon as he said this, Muyu was stunned. The dead tree also looked at Xiao Shuai and sneered. "You want me to disperse my cultivation so that I can be humiliated by you and then die without dignity?" The dead tree's cultivation had already reached great heights. Letting him disperse his cultivation was worse than killing him. How could he disperse his cultivation? "Is there no other way?" Muyu asked seriously. Xiao Shuai shook his head and said, "He cultivates poison. His spiritual power is full of poison. After dispersing his cultivation, he can still live. This is the only way. Get out. I'd rather die than disperse my cultivation." The dead tree roared and swept Muyu and Xiao Shuai out of the treehouse. The door of the treehouse was tightly closed. Muyu looked at the celestial demon tree. He was somewhat disappointed. The dead tree was born with a speech impediment. He was probably ridiculed by many people since he was young. Later on, he cultivated the path of poison and was rejected by everyone. His eccentric character was developed like this. He wanted to find a successor and pass down his life's work. However, by a freak combination of factors, he found the disciple of his enemy. After knowing Muyu's identity, he didn't want to teach his life's work to Muyu. However, because of Muyu's ability to control wood, he became the most suitable person to learn poison. He already knew that he didn't have much time left. He had no choice but to choose Muyu. Muyu refused to call him master. Therefore, he stubbornly believed that Muyu and all other cultivators were disgusted with him. Therefore, when Xiao Shuai proposed the idea of dispersing his cultivation, he couldn't accept it. He could choose to die, but he absolutely wouldn't choose to live without dignity in front of his enemy's disciple. Once his cultivation dissipated, he would be immortal. For the past year, he had been very strict with Muyu. He would hang Muyu up for the slightest provocation. He believed that Muyu would definitely take revenge on him now that he had lost his cultivation. But what he didn't know was that Muyu was never the kind of person he imagined. "I won't let you die. Either you live and take me to the Danding sect, or I won't go to the Danding sect." Muyu shouted, "It's up to you to go or not. If you don't go to the Danding sect, your master will die." The dead tree's voice echoed. "What about you? Aren't you also my master?" Muyu said subconsciously. He didn't want to call the dead tree master because he thought it was tantamount to betraying his real master. However, he also understood that everything the dead tree did was no different from a master. Chapter 182. For the next few days, the dead tree didn't appear in front of Muyu. He stayed in the tree house and didn't talk to Muyu. Muyu didn't know what he was doing inside. There were restrictions set up around the celestial demon tree, blocking Muyu outside. Muyu tried everything, but couldn't get in. He was very anxious. Could it be that something really happened to the dead tree? Is he still alive? Muyu touched little Shuai's ear and said worriedly. He always felt that the dead tree was an unfathomable old man who only knew how to scold him. But suddenly knowing that he was going to die, Muyu began to feel sad. Little Shuai swung his tail and said, "I don't know." Although the green-haired old man always said that he would refine the big earthworm into medicine, he never did it. "Little mouse, are you looking for death?" Dragon Vine swung its tail on the water's surface, creating waves. The waves fell on little Shuai's body, making him very uncomfortable. "Do you think the green-haired old man will scatter his cultivation?" Little Shuai tilted his head and asked. Scattering one's cultivation was something hard for an expert to accept. When a cultivator lost his cultivation, he lost everything. He couldn't be immortal because his ability was incompatible with immortals. If they had to choose, many cultivators would rather die. Muyu had been locked in this valley for more than a year. Although he and the dead tree scolded each other every day, and the dead tree wanted to kill him, people always had feelings. If something happened to the dead tree, Muyu wouldn't feel good in his heart. The dead tree wasn't a bad person. His personality was just a bit weird. His temper was a bit irritable because of Muyu. At other times, he was just a dull old man who studied his poison alone. He had dealt with poison his whole life, and in the end, he was also corroded by poison. Muyu thought of a Grandmaster Alchemist. A Grandmaster Alchemist was an alchemist. When they refined pills, they also needed to extract the medicinal efficacies of various herbs. Over time, a lot of wood dregs would accumulate in their bodies, causing their cultivation to be unable to progress. The dead tree came from the Pill Cauldron sect and had a deep relationship with alchemists. Not only was there wood dregs in his body, there was also poison. Poison, to Muyu, was nothing to be afraid of. However, dead tree was not Muyu, who had the ability to merge with trees to detoxify the poison. He was a normal cultivator, so he could not detoxify the poison in his body. Muyu was bored to death as he sat on the wooden bridge and stroked Xiao Shuai's fluffy tail with his fingers. "Do you think I can do it if I help the dead tree filter the spiritual energy in its body like how I help the medicine master?" "You don't need me to tell you that it's impossible. Although alchemists deal with herbs, at least the spiritual energy in their bodies is normal." Deadwood's spiritual energy is completely mixed with poison. His body is surprisingly not corroded by the poison, so dispersing his cultivation is the only choice. Little Shuai said, "This old man is very old. Once he loses his power and becomes immortal, it means that some mortal diseases will appear on his body. He can't withstand the stimulation. Otherwise, something will happen." Dragon Vine's tail splashed the water as it spoke. Although Dragon Vine was threatened by Dead Tree to refine medicine every time, it knew that Dead Tree was only joking. Otherwise, it would have been dead long ago. "You mean, I can't anger him in the future, right?" Muyu rolled his eyes. Dead Tree stuttered when he was angry, but his way of speaking when he was angry would drive anyone crazy. In order to save trouble, Muyu often deliberately angered this old man. However, at this moment, a huge wave of spiritual energy suddenly rippled out with the celestial demon tree as the center. The huge wave caught Muyu and the others off guard and sent them flying. They fell into the river one after another. The ground of the valley was trembling as if a big earthquake had occurred. All the monsters at the bottom of the river were trembling. Of course, they were familiar with this aura. This aura was the aura of Dead Tree Evergreen, who usually subdued them. Usually, when this aura appeared, it meant that a monster was about to be caught by Dead Tree Evergreen to be tested for poison. Muyu poked his head out of the river and spat out a mouthful of water. He looked in the direction of the celestial demon tree in bewilderment. There, a majestic spiritual energy was constantly emanating from all around. Under this spiritual energy, Muyu felt like a small boat in a storm, drifting and in danger of capsizing at any time. This terrifying spiritual energy lasted for an entire hour before it slowly dissipated. The old man really lost his cultivation. Little Shuai lay on top of Muyu's head. Its whole body was wet, and it could only constantly shake its body, splashing water everywhere. Muyu quickly jumped out of the river and rushed toward the celestial demon tree. The restriction outside the celestial demon tree had disappeared. Muyu smoothly pushed open the door and walked in. Dead Tree sat cross-legged on the bed with his head down. His whole body trembled, and his chest kept rising and falling. His originally green hair had turned white. His whole body was like gossamer, and there was no spiritual energy fluctuation coming out. No one thought that the famous dead tree in the cultivation world would become an ordinary person without any cultivation at this moment. You want to take revenge on me? Now, you can start. Dead Tree raised his head. His whole body was incomparably old, and his white beard was hanging in front of his chest. He had become an old man without the strength to truss a chicken. Muyu walked over, looked up and down at Dead Tree, and said, "Old man, when your hair is not green, you are actually very kind. Are you being sarcastic?" Dead Tree became angry out of humiliation. He raised his hand and wanted to hang Muyu up. Then he remembered that his cultivation had disappeared. Muyu looked at Dead Tree's hand, stopped in midair with a smile, and said, "The ability to hang people has failed, right? Haha, this is really good. In the future, I won't have to have a congested brain every day." Dead Tree glared at Muyu and said, "Don't be too insolent. Enough, you are already so old. Why are you still so stubborn? I am not a person who forgets righteousness at the sight of profit. Do you think I will throw you out? You just lie down obediently." Muyu supported Dead Tree and slowly lay down. He took out the quilt that he had been occupying and covered Dead Tree. Dead Tree laid on the bed and looked at Muyu and did not say anything. Muyu took out a bottle and said with a smile, "Old man, this is a medicine that I made when I had nothing to do these few days. It will make your body feel better. You want to poison me?" Dead Tree frowned. Muyu snorted and said, "What poison? In any case, I have learned some things about Dead Tree Evergreen. Old man, can't you have a bit of confidence in me? If I wanted you to die, I would have already slapped you. Why would I need to poison you?" Muyu did not allow any explanation and directly mixed the medicine with water. He used the pill flint stone to burn it and then slowly fed it to Dead Tree. Dead Tree was angry, but he did not refuse Muyu's medicine. This medicine was naturally very precious. For mortals, it could make their body 100 times stronger. In the past, he could casually punish Muyu, who was disobedient. Now, Muyu had become someone who could play with him. It was really fate. However, Muyu did not seem to want to do that. "Let me think. Little Shuai said that your body is too weak to bear strong herbs. I will look for herbs with weaker effects." Muyu rummaged through his 100-herb pouch and finally found a few herbs. He began to decoct other medicines for Dead Tree. Dead Tree looked at Muyu sitting on the ground and testing the medicine. After a long time, he said, "You want to leave here, right?" "Of course I want to leave. I don't want to stay in this godforsaken place for even a moment. However, I also want to take a burden like you with me. It is really troublesome." Muyu shook his head and sighed. "Brat, didn't you say that you treated me as your master? Can you respect your master a little?" Dead Tree scolded. Muyu shrugged. "No, it was just a slip of the tongue that day. Besides, if you want to be my master, what if my real master doesn't agree?" "Umph." Dead Tree seemed to be very unhappy when he thought of Feng Haochen. He muttered a few unpleasant words, degrading Feng Haochen as if he was worthless. He really did not understand. Did the true gods of the 3 continents dig up Dead Tree's ancestral grave? Dead Tree always had a deep hatred for Feng Haochen. Muyu did not care. Although he really wanted to know what happened between Dead Tree and Feng Haochen, Muyu knew that Dead Tree would definitely not say it out loud. Muyu was sandwiched in the middle of the grudges of the previous generation. It was already very difficult for Muyu. If he had to control what Dead Tree scolded him, how tiring would that be? Take the Qianquan pouch. Dead Tree reluctantly took out a pouch and threw it to Muyu. Muyu used his divine sense to explore the pouch. When he saw the things inside, Muyu's eyes immediately lit up. He had never seen so many good things before. Dead Tree's many years of collection were all inside. It could be said that there was everything one could wish for. These belong to me. Muyu laughed mischievously. He held them in his arms like a miser and branded his divine sense, afraid that someone would snatch them away. Dead Tree's lips curled up slightly. His life's savings were all in this chinquin pouch. These things were indeed left for Muyu. He had never accepted a disciple in his life. When he was about to die, he met Muyu. Although this guy had never called a master, he had to teach these things to Muyu. Not only because Muyu's real master was someone he knew, but also because Muyu had the potential that Dead Tree appreciated. Dead Tree felt very sleepy. He hadn't felt sleepy for a long time. Cultivators didn't feel sleepy, only tired. They generally didn't sleep and relied on meditation to preserve their energy. People like Muyu who cultivated while sleeping were rare. Xiao Shuai kept asking Muyu what was in the chinquin pouch and whether it was edible. Muyu was mysterious and didn't want to say, making Xiao Shuai's heart itch. When Xiao Shuai was about to snatch it, he found that Dead Tree's body was rapidly aging. He immediately reminded Muyu, hurry up and inject vitality into him. Even if the old man lost his cultivation, he's so old and weak at the moment. It's easy for something to happen. Muyu came to his senses. He patted his head and quickly pressed his left hand on the wall. His right hand held Dead Tree's arm and carefully injected the vitality of the celestial demon tree. Dead Tree was already an ordinary person. The vitality that his body could bear was limited. Muyu had to be careful. Dead Tree gradually fell asleep. It was the first time he had fallen asleep in so many years. He slept very peacefully. Muyu felt that the old man was very cute when he didn't speak. When he spoke, he was even more fun. Muyu liked to see the old man, choked by him. Withered Tree's cultivation dissipated, which meant that Muyu had regained his freedom. However, Muyu did not relax at all. He had to accompany an ordinary person to a cultivation sect, which meant that he had to protect Withered Tree at all times. Moreover, he could not provoke Withered Tree, lest Withered Tree had a heart attack in his old age. Chapter 183. Why is the Danding sect so far away? It was not difficult for Muyu, who was in the nascent soul stage, to take an ordinary person on a long journey. However, even with the speed of a nascent soul stage cultivator, Muyu still took 5 to 6 days to reach the Danding sect. We're almost there. Kumu's words were very concise. They were either we're almost there or we're so slow. With Kumu's previous cultivation, it would take less than a day to reach the Danding sect from the valley. However, Muyu was not Kumu, so he could not rush. Muyu had never been to the Danding sect before. He felt like a little horse with a bad sense of direction being ridden by Kumu. He had the ability to throw the rider off, but he could not do so. Dragon Vine was now wrapped around Muyu's wrist. It could change its size at will. Usually it liked to be bigger. According to it, it looked more domineering. It was impossible for Muyu to let the Dragon Vine follow him so blatantly. It was now a wanted criminal in the cultivation world, just like Muyu. Once it swaggered around the city, it would definitely not live for more than 2 chapters. With Muyu's cultivation, he would not be able to protect it. Since Dragon Vine was rescued by Kumu, it did not want to leave. The place where it used to live was known by the cultivation world on the floating immortal island. It could not go back. Other places were not absolutely safe, so it simply followed Muyu. In order to not attract attention, it could only choose to become smaller. Dragon Vine was now like a snake. It was always teased by Xiao Shuai. Xiao Shuai called it Big Earthworm and Caterpillar, which made Dragon Vine very angry. If you call me Caterpillar again, I will eat you. Caterpillar, let's fight one-on-one. Caterpillar. The two weirdos never stopped bickering, but it also made the journey less lonely. Sometimes, when Deadwood heard Little Handsome and Long-Tongue bickering, he couldn't help but smile. The Dragon Vine had a very special ability. When it spoke, whoever it wanted to speak would be able to understand it. This was also why, when the dragon vine was trapped by the people of floating immortal island and asked Muyu for help, only Muyu could understand it. The others couldn't understand it. Of course, a strange thing like Little Handsome did not count. Long Tongue's ability was naturally ineffective against Little Handsome. No matter how Long Tongue blocked Little Handsome could still understand Long Tongue's words. The dragon vine now trusted the dead tree, so it allowed the dead tree to understand what it was saying. After flying for so many days, Muyu did not feel tired. However, Deadwood was now a person without cultivation. He needed a rest, so he had to find a place to rest every day. They found the nearest city, which was called Dan City. According to Kumu, this city was only a few hours away from the Dan Cauldron sect. Now that it was a little late, they were not in a hurry to go. It was better to wait until tomorrow. Pill City was adjacent to the Pill Cauldron sect. Naturally, it had a great relationship with the Pill Cauldron sect. Most of the houses and shops in the city were businesses of the Pill Cauldron sect. Pill City was also the place where alchemists gathered the most in the 3 continents. It was as if alchemists were worthless here. You could meet an alchemist every 3 steps. Muyu found an inn called Foresees His Home. The reason why he chose this inn was mainly because he felt that the name of the inn was very suitable for his current situation. He now had no fixed residence and was drifting around. Recently, he even had to accompany an old man to the strange and powerful Pill Cauldron sect. With his pitiful nascent soul stage cultivation in front of the colossal Pill Cauldron sect, he simply couldn't raise a small wave. Wait here. I'll book a room. Muyu asked Deadwood to wait at the door first. He quickly walked to the counter. Muyu queued for a while. There were 4 or 5 people in front of him. It seemed that this inn's business was good. He looked around and saw that it was full of guests. Basically, they were all cultivators in strange clothes. Muyu also noticed that the manager's hat was embroidered with a large cauldron pattern. That was the symbol of the Pill Cauldron sect. Obviously, this one belonged to the Pill Cauldron sect. Go away. Don't block the way, stinky old man. Muyu was queuing. Suddenly, there was a commotion behind him, followed by the sound of someone falling down. Muyu turned his head and saw 4 people rudely rushing into the inn. The 4 people were led by a young man wearing a silver-white brocade robe. His cultivation was at the nascent soul stage. The other 3 were men who looked like guards. They seemed to have a strong background. Muyu looked to the side. Deadwood was pushed to the ground. He was frowning and rubbing his arm. "Old master, are you okay?" Muyu quickly ran over to help Deadwood up. Deadwood was just an ordinary old man now. This fall was not light. Muyu suddenly became angry and shouted at the young man who bumped into Deadwood, "Stop! Don't you have eyes or something? Why don't you apologize for bumping into someone?" The young man glanced at Muyu contemptuously and said arrogantly, "So what if I bumped into you? A good dog doesn't block the way, understand? It's good enough that I didn't kill this old man." The 3 followers behind him also stared at Muyu fiercely. These people were all at the Jindan period. They warned Muyu not to overestimate himself. If Muyu had been hit, he wouldn't have cared. The point was that Deadwood had been hit. Muyu was immediately unhappy. You think it's reasonable to bump into someone? Do you have no manners, or what? You'd better apologize to Old Master. Otherwise, don't think about letting this matter go. Muyu hated this kind of playboy the most. They were arrogant, domineering, and looked down on others. They thought they were great. "Boy, you new here, right? You really don't know who I am?" The young man looked at Muyu and smiled evilly. "Go and teach this boy a lesson for me. Let him learn something." "Yes, young master." The 3 followers behind the young man immediately nodded and walked towards Muyu fiercely. They clenched their fists and were ready to trample on Muyu. "Don't here cause trouble." Deadwood pulled Muyu back. When Deadwood saw the young man, he seemed to be afraid of something. "Hey, he bumped into you. I won't let anyone hurt you. After all, you're under my protection. If you swallow your anger after being bullied, you'll lose my face." Muyu pulled over a chair and let Deadwood sit on it. Then he turned around. His eyes were cold and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. He was now at the 3rd heavenly layer of the nascent soul stage, but because he didn't want to appear too ostentatious, he suppressed his cultivation to a very low level. These gold core stage shrimp soldiers and crab generals thought that Muyu was just a hothead and didn't know who he had provoked. Deadwood still wanted to say something, but when he saw Muyu's back, he swallowed his words. The words, "You're under my protection," made Deadwood's heart feel inexplicably warm. Although it was very degrading and a little funny, no one had ever stood up for him. Muyu was the first. To be honest, in the past, he didn't need anyone to do anything for him. With Deadwood's cultivation, he could handle it himself. But now that he had lost his cultivation, Muyu was willing to stand up for him. This made him feel a little strange. Muyu only moved his body a few times, and the three followers were easily taken care of by him. They fell to the ground, moaning and groaning. These three people weren't very strong. They were only in the Jindan period. To Muyu, it was a piece of cake. "Young master, sure, this guest, don't cause trouble here. Let's talk things over." The shopkeeper was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He hurriedly came over to persuade him. He obviously knew this young man. Fighting in his place was something he didn't want to see. "Stop talking nonsense. If something happens, I'll take responsibility. I've underestimated you." The young man was also in the fifth sky of the nascent soul stage. He didn't put Muyu in his eyes. With his identity, age, and cultivation, he also had the right to be arrogant. Muyu leaned forward and chopped with one hand. The other party's right palm was pushed away and his left hand struck back. Muyu, on the other hand, borrowed the momentum to get behind him. Close combat was the most advantageous for Muyu. The place was small. Whether it was Muyu or the young man, they both tried their best to control their spiritual power fluctuations so as not to destroy the inn. Muyu's speed was much faster than the other party. This person only had cultivation, but he didn't have the corresponding close combat skills. In just 2 rounds, Muyu left a bright red palm print on his face. This palm is for the old man. Muyu tilted his head and dodged the other party's fist. He swung his hand and slapped the other side of the young man's face. "This palm is for me." The young man touched his face in disbelief. No one had ever slapped him in the face since he was a child. Muyu, on the other hand, had slapped him twice, which was not light at all. He touched his burning face and shouted in exasperation, "You dare to hit me? You're dead. Go to hell for me. Shopkeeper, why are you still in a daze? Hurry up and take this guy down for me." When the shopkeeper saw that young Master Sure was beaten, he cried bitterly in his heart. He quickly put on a straight face and shouted at Muyu, "This guest, this is the territory of the Pill Cauldron sect. This young master is the grandson of old Ancestor Sure. You dare to hit him. It's not too late for you to apologize now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." The shopkeeper flicked his sleeve and revealed the strength of a 7th heavenly layer nascent soul stage cultivator. Muyu was secretly surprised. This shopkeeper didn't seem to be an ordinary person. Muyu didn't know what kind of person old Ancestor Sure was, and he didn't want to know. When he was in the Jindan period, he killed a nascent soul stage genius. Even if the shopkeeper's cultivation was higher than his, he didn't seem to be afraid of him. Opening a door to do business and bullying people with power. This is new. Since you belong to the Pill Cauldron sect, is this how the Pill Cauldron sect greets its guests? Muyu said in a deep voice. However, at this time, he didn't want to make a move. They were going to the Pill Cauldron sect. Since this guy was also a member of the Pill Cauldron sect, it wouldn't be fun if they became enemies. My Pill Cauldron sect way of doing things doesn't need a brat like you to comment. The shopkeeper was a little unhappy with Muyu's words. Although this was the territory of the Pill Cauldron sect, they still paid attention to fairness when doing business. It was obviously inappropriate for him to do this. Fortunately, the reputation of the Pill Cauldron sect was big enough. Even if someone didn't agree, no one dared to say anything. Impudent. Shopkeeper Liu, this brother's right. Bullying people is not the style of our Pill Cauldron sect. Why don't you hurry up and apologize to this brother?" At this time, a voice came from the stairs. Chapter 184. Kai Lai, you traitor. How dare you speak up for an outsider? The young man's face turned even uglier when he saw the person who spoke. He pointed at Kai Lai and scolded him angrily. Muyu blinked. He didn't expect to see Kai Lai here. After not seeing him for so long, this guy had already reached the nascent soul stage. As expected, the disciple of the alchemy sect's master alchemist wasn't just for show. Kai Lai motioned to Muyu, telling him not to say anything. He would deal with this matter himself. Muyu's reputation in the cultivation world was quite big, but not many people had actually seen him. Some of them had even been killed by Deadwood. Therefore, the surrounding people didn't associate the youth who caused havoc on floating Immortal Island with the current Muyu. If Kai Lai suddenly spoke to Muyu, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Sure Minghui, you've really made our alchemy sect proud. First of all, I'm on the side of reason, not family. Secondly, according to seniority, I'm your martial uncle. It's fine if you don't respect me, but you're embarrassing the alchemy sect. How can the alchemy sect have such a scum like you? Kai Lai shook his head and said in disappointment. Kai Lai was Shi Minghui's martial uncle? This was somewhat interesting. Looking at Kai Lai's appearance, he was probably younger than Shi Minghui. His cultivation wasn't as high as Shi Minghui's. Unfortunately, he found a good master, which meant that he was superior to Shi Minghui. Judging from the tone of the two of them, Shi Minghui and Kai Lai's relationship wasn't good. It was likely that Shi Minghui had always been taken advantage of by Kai Lai due to the issue of seniority, so his attitude towards Kai Lai was very unfriendly. Shi Minghui's expression was ugly. He glared at Kai Lai. Although his cultivation was higher than Kai Lai, he was always suppressed by Kai Lai, which made him very unhappy. Muyu couldn't help but laugh. This Kai Lai would usually use seniority to insult Shi Minghui, but Shi Minghui couldn't say anything. Anyone would feel very aggrieved. Don't give me that. Do you really think I don't dare to do anything to you? Shi Minghui looked at the people around him who were pointing and gossiping. He also found himself in a difficult position, and his voice sounded lacking in confidence. This is the property of our Pill Cauldron sect. If your unreasonable pestering damages the reputation of our Pill Cauldron sect and affects our income, I think your grandfather will punish you severely, right? Ellie directly pinned the blame of damaging the reputation of the Pill Cauldron School onto Shi Minghui's head, causing Shi Minghui to gnash his teeth in anger. Elation was, of course, just a casual remark. Shi Minghui's grandfather loved this grandson of his the most, and he was famous for being protective. He would not punish Shi Minghui. Do you think I'm scared? Shi Minghui sneered. He didn't take Kai Lai's words to heart. I don't know if you're scared, but let me remind you, I just saw Elderlin coming here. She shouldn't be looking for you, right? Kai Lai tilted his head and looked at Shi Minghui with interest. Sure enough, when he heard Elder Lung, Shi Minghui's expression immediately changed. He seemed to be afraid of this Elder Lung, and a trace of panic appeared on his face. He turned his head towards Muyu and said fiercely, I'll remember this debt. Don't let me meet you again, or else I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. After Shi Minghui finished speaking, he angrily kicked the follower who was rolling around to the side, shouted trash, and then left in a panic. Shopkeeper, what are you still standing there for? Why aren't you arranging a room for this brother? Next time we encounter such a thing, we have to deal with it impartially. Don't let everyone think that our Pill Cauldron sect is unreasonable. That's not good. Kai Lai lectured the shopkeeper in an old-fashioned manner, then leisurely walked upstairs. Understood, young Master Kai Lai. The shopkeeper hurriedly agreed, secretly complaining in his heart. Kai Lai's words were pleasant to hear, but in front of a person like Shi Minghui, if he dealt with it impartially, he wouldn't be able to be the shopkeeper anymore. However, since this matter had been resolved by Kai Lai, he couldn't say anything. He hurriedly opened a room for Muyu with an apologetic smile, and secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, it didn't cause any other trouble. These two little ancestors weren't easy to provoke in the Pill Cauldron sect. Not to mention their great backgrounds. Both of them liked to cause trouble. The dead tree didn't say anything during the whole process. He seemed to be thinking about something. Muyu thought that he was feeling very aggrieved because he was bullied by a nascent soul stage junior today. No matter what, he used to be an existence that could casually slap a nascent soul stage cultivator to death like a fly, but now he had fallen to the point where he was bullied by a nascent soul stage cultivator. Muyu comforted him. Old man, don't worry about it. I've already slapped that guy twice. As long as you say the word, I can chase after him and give him a third slap. The dead tree looked at Muyu helplessly. In his heart, he was saying, you really don't know what trouble you've caused. However, he didn't say it out loud. He just casually said, in, and then went to his room under the waiter's instructions. I'm coming in. Muyu had just checked the dead tree's body to see if there was any problem when Kai Lai's excited voice came from outside the door. Then, the door was pushed open, and Kai Lai ran in like a whirlwind. It's really you, brat. Kai Lai patted Muyu heavily. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. It was as if someone had opened up a box of words, and he poured out 1,000 miles. I've heard everything about you. You really walked out of the Withered Tree Valley? You even dared to rob a place where the dead trees are evergreen? You're too amazing. You really killed those nascent soul stage youths on the floating immortal island? Even if those people were at the same level, it wouldn't be easy to kill them. How'd you do it? Where did you go after that? I heard that you were captured by the dead tree. Is this the second time you escaped? You're really awesome. How did you manage to escape from a group of severed soul stage experts while riding on Dragonvine? If only I had followed them to the floating immortal island. Riding a dragon. How awe-inspiring. I also want to ride it. Why are you here now? You. Kai Lai's mouth opened, and he threw out a lot of questions. Muyu was stunned. He didn't know how to answer these questions. Kai Lai was the first friend he made after coming to the 3 continents. To be able to see Kai Lai here, Muyu was very happy. Muyu patted his head and said helplessly, ask the important questions. There are too many questions. I can't remember them all. However, Kai Lai suddenly looked at the dead tree. Seeing that the dead tree was just an ordinary person without any cultivation, he asked curiously, who is this? Your old servant? Who are you calling a servant? The dead tree felt that he was insulted. His anger rose, and his words became sneaky. He is Deadwood Evergreen, my master. Don't speak nonsense. Muyu hurriedly comforted Deadwood, trying to calm him down. Oh, your master, Deadwood Evergreen. AI, I don't care. You still haven't answered my question. After so long, you... Wait, Deadwood Evergreen? You are saying that he is Deadwood Evergreen. Kai Lai suddenly woke up. His eyes were wide open. He jumped back and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He made a defensive posture and looked at the dead tree vigilantly. Is there a need to react so exaggeratedly? Muyu shrugged his shoulders. Isn't Deadwood Evergreen a green-haired old man? He doesn't look like one. Moreover, this old man doesn't seem to have any cultivation. Besides, Deadwood Evergreen is a stutterer. This old man speaks so eloquently. How is he Deadwood Evergreen? You couldn't have been fooled by some old swindler, right? Kai Lai looked at the dead tree suspiciously. He was really straightforward and didn't know how to cover up his words. Who are you calling an old swindler? The dead tree frowned. It's a long story. I'll tell you later. However, he is indeed Deadwood Evergreen. He is a very powerful senior. He is highly respected and has a deep sense of righteousness. He is a role model of the cultivation world. Muyu quickly patted the dead tree's back and flattered him. Master. Who? Yours. The dead tree's expression finally eased. What? Kai Lai didn't understand this disorganized speech. He didn't have Muyu who could help the dead tree form sentences. He asked who your master is. I know this. It is Great Master Yao Wuji. Oh, right. Kai Lai, don't you know that the dead tree is from your sect? Muyu asked curiously. Kai Lai shrugged his shoulders. I know this, but they all say that the dead tree studies the evil path and doesn't belong to the Tao of Alchemy. He left the Pill Cauldron sect a long time ago. We almost don't talk about him. Evil path? The dead tree frowned. They said it, not me. Kai Lai quickly waved his hand. He knew that the dead tree cultivates the Tao of poison. People who use poison can kill people invisibly. He didn't want to die without knowing why. Lung Bingxue, will she come? The dead tree asked again. This time, Kai Lai understood. He chuckled. I was just bluffing that guy. Elder Lung Bingxue is very dignified in the sect. Even Shi Minghui's grandfather gives her some face. Shi Minghui was once taught a lesson by Elder Lung Bingxue. The shadow in his heart is very big. Then why do you call her icy? Muyu asked. Because she is icy. Whether it is speaking or doing things, she always has a cold appearance. That is why we all call her that in private. Kai Lai snickered. Muyu began to tell Kai Lai about what happened after he left the Withered Tree Valley. How he sneaked into the floating immortal island. Regarding the dragon vine, he only said that he was accidentally swallowed by the dragon vine. However, he was lucky enough to escape from the dragon vine's stomach. In any case, no matter how outrageous his story was, no one would verify it. Muyu might as well make it more mysterious. In the end, he said that his cultivation technique just happened to restrain Quicksword, which was why he killed him. In the middle of this, the dead tree also added that the other 8 were killed by him. It was only at this time that Muyu realized how mysterious the rumors about him were. Then, when he talked about the dead tree's cultivation technique, he looked at the dead tree inquiringly. Seeing that the dead tree did not object, he told Kai Lai the truth. Kai Lai listened in a daze. He did not forget to add in a few exclamations of, "Fuck, that's also possible, and you are so powerful." When he heard how Muyu relied on his cultivation during the Jindan period to fight against a nascent soul stage cultivator, he even secretly broke out in a cold sweat for Muyu. "I want to see your master," the dead tree said. Kai Lai shook his head. "My master broke through to the spirit-severing stage a while ago. He is still in seclusion to consolidate his cultivation, so he can't see you. However, what are you doing here?" The dead tree muttered a few words that were unclear. Muyu could tell that the dead tree was talking about how Yao Wuji's aptitude was so bad that he only entered the spirit-severing stage now. Muyu decided not to translate the dead tree's stuttering for Kai Lai to avoid awkwardness. Tian Weitian quota. The dead tree spat out these inexplicable words. Muyu felt strange. He had never heard of the term Tian Weitian. However, Kai Lai was shocked. He obviously knew what this Tian Weitian quota meant. He didn't expect that the dead tree had been away for a few years. As soon as he came back, he wanted the quota. He couldn't make the decision on this matter. Only the head of the Danding sect was qualified to make the decision. He quickly explained this to the dead tree. Chapter 185. Muyu still underestimated his knowledge of this world. There are some things that Feng Haochen did not tell him. Of course, it could be before Muyu entered the sect. This world was not as simple as he thought. It was said that there were other worlds outside of this world, which are called the sky beyond heaven. The third layer continent belonged to the third layer of heaven. Humans live there, so there must be a first layer of heaven, second layer of heaven, and so on. Humans were not very clear about the other layers of heaven. So far, the third layer of heaven's self-cultivators knew that the other sky beyond heaven was called the second layer of heaven. The second layer of heaven was a wild and primitive area. There are all kinds of powerful demonic beasts living there. These demonic beasts could be found all over the second layer of heaven. Whether it was strength or cultivation, they were all quite terrifying. They were far from what third-layer demonic beasts could compare to. Because of various factors, humans were not suitable to live in this world. Otherwise, the self-cultivators would have already migrated there and wreaked havoc in the second layer of heaven. The only connection between the second layer of heaven and the third layer of heaven was within the Danding sect. It was guarded by generations of the Danding sect. If one wanted to enter the second layer of heaven, they had to go through the Danding sect. This was the only way. The connection point was a transportation array that had been preserved from ancient times. This transportation array was quite old. It could connect the two worlds and transport a third layer of heaven's self-cultivator to the second layer of heaven. The transportation array would open once every 10 years. There was a time limit for it to open. Only when it was open could a third layer of heaven's self-cultivator enter the second layer of heaven. Many self-cultivators were drooling over the second layer of heaven and wanted to go in and explore. Because there were no humans living in the second layer of heaven, It was equivalent to a natural treasure trove that had yet to be excavated. All the cultivation resources were quite considerable. In the second layer of heaven, there were precious herbs, rare demonic beasts, and heaven-defying magical weapon materials. Everything was available. As long as one was lucky, one could get a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, the transportation array was from ancient times. The transportation arrays of ancient times were different from the ones of today. They were ancient, mysterious, and complicated. Many aspects of the array technology had not been passed down. It was impossible for the current self-cultivators to replicate this transportation array. Because of its age, this teleportation array was very fragile. When people above the nascent soul stage used the teleportation array, they would reject the teleportation array because their spiritual energy was too large. In order to protect themselves, the teleportation array would erase cultivators above the nascent soul stage. Therefore, the teleportation array only allowed people below the nascent soul stage to enter. Humans were a race that knew how to use cultivation resources to improve their own cultivation. In addition, cultivators didn't know how to use resources rationally, which led to the depletion of many precious resources in the third heaven. Some things were already extinct in the third heaven. If one wanted to find them, they would have to go to the second heaven. This was also the reason why many self-cultivators were so enthusiastic about going to the second heaven. The most important point was that the second layer of heaven had many medicinal herbs and powerful demon beasts that did not exist in the third layer of heaven. This was because the second layer of heaven was rich in spirit chi. Abundant spiritual chi could make herbs and beasts undergo earth-shaking changes. Just think about the difference between the three continents with relatively dense spiritual chi and the Mayan mountain range with poor spiritual chi. The density of spiritual chi was closely related to a cultivator's cultivation speed. Of course, talent was also indispensable. If one could enter the second layer of heaven, even if they didn't go for the demon beasts and medicinal herbs, cultivating there for a period of time would be much faster than cultivating in the third layer of heaven. The second layer of heaven was a treasured land for cultivators to quickly improve their cultivation. Who wouldn't be jealous of such a place? Because the teleportation array itself had a limited capacity, the number of people who could enter the second layer of heaven was strictly limited by the people of the third palace. Each sect was only allowed 5 people to enter. And because the Danding School had guarded the teleportation array for generations, they were allowed 6 people to enter. Of course, entering the second layer of heaven was not something that any sect could enter. Every time, the third palace decided which sects could enter. The third palace was a mysterious, ancient, and powerful decision. No one dared to question their decision. No matter which sects entered, the 8 gates in the Danding School would definitely be among them. There was no doubt about this. Let's talk about how the Danding School allocated these 6 places. The Danding School was divided into 5 branches. According to the rules, each branch would be allocated a place to enter the second layer of heaven. The main branch was headed by the head of the Danding School, Taoist Yundan. Kai Lai's branch was headed by Yao Wuji. Shi Minghui's branch was headed by his grandfather, Shi Bingtian. Elder Lung Bingxue formed his own branch. The last branch was actually very funny. It was the Deadwood branch. Muyu also just found out that Deadwood's position in the Danding School was quite high. He could be considered to be on the same level as the head of the school. Unfortunately, Deadwood's branch had withered and only existed in name. When Deadwood was still alive, he didn't have many disciples. And after he left, the people of his branch all transferred to other branches. Deadwood's branch was also considered to have no connections. The Danding School had 6 places. 5 of them belonged to the 5 branches. The branch heads decided how to allocate them. The other place was a prize for every disciple to compete for. Those who passed the competition would get it. Because Deadwood's branch had withered and Deadwood was not in the school all year round, the position of the head of the school was also used as a reward. That was to say, after each branch head appointed a person, the other disciples had the opportunity to compete for these 2 places. Deadwood came back this time naturally to take back this place and let Muyu enter. This seemed to be a matter of course. After all, this place originally belonged to Deadwood's branch. But in fact, Deadwood had left the Danding School for decades. Many people had long forgotten about him. His branch's place became the target of competition. Everyone took it as a matter of course. This time, he suddenly came back and said that he wanted to take back the place. It was equivalent to harming the interests of many Danding School disciples. It was impossible for no one to object. Deadwood wanted to let Muyu enter the second layer of heaven, but Muyu was not very enthusiastic about it. That place is so dangerous. I'm not going. Muyu was not interested in hunting demonic beasts or herbs. He now had all of Deadwood's belongings in his bag. What herbs did he not have? Going in was nothing more than cultivation. And according to Kai Lai's explanation, the second layer of heaven also had to be prepared to fight against powerful demonic beasts. He was not willing to do such a thankless thing. Underworld grass, 9 chi, soul-cleansing flower, the second layer of heaven. Deadwood glanced at Muyu and said lightly, "These two things can only be found in the second layer of heaven." Muyu opened his mouth and felt a headache coming. No wonder Deadwood wanted him to come to the Danding School. It turned out that he wanted him to go to the second layer of heaven to find these two things. But at the same time, there was a problem. If Muyu wanted to enter the second layer of heaven, he had to get back the place. For decades, the place that belonged to Deadwood had been used by other outstanding disciples in the Danding School. Could he get back? Kai Lai, what do you think are the chances of me getting back the second layer of heaven? Muyu asked. I estimate less than 10%. Everyone in the school values these two places very much. Many people have even made a lot of preparations and sacrifices in order to compete for these two places. If you take one of them as soon as you come back, there will be a lot of people who will oppose it. Kai Lai touched his chin and shook his head. There is no need to think about it to know how low this possibility was. Muyu looked at Deadwood and found that Deadwood was also looking at him. He understood that if Deadwood's cultivation was still there, with Deadwood's tyrannical means, the chances of him getting back the second layer of heaven would be higher. But now, Kumu was just a mortal. Even if his status wasn't low in the past, in a cultivation world where strength was everything, especially an alchemist of the Danding sect with a lofty status, how could these arrogant people return this quota to him so easily? Old man, do you really think I can persuade those arrogant alchemists by myself? The alchemists of the Pill Cauldron faction were reputable existences in the 3 major continents. Wherever they went, they would be praised by everyone. However, Muyu didn't know anything about alchemy. What qualifications did he have to bargain in front of a group of alchemists? What do you think I taught you those things? Do what? Do. But the Tao of poison and the Tao of alchemy are different. Who told you that it's different? Deadwood was very dissatisfied with Muyu looking down on the Tao of poison. The Tao he walked was different from the Tao of alchemy. It was equivalent to opening up a new path. It was fine if others did not understand him, but the successor he chose also questioned him. This made him angry. Well, it's the same. What else can I say? Muyu spread out his hands. He felt an unprecedented pressure attacking him. Every disciple of the Danding School was a person with outstanding talent. They had been practicing alchemy since they were young. Alchemy was already closely related to their lives. Presumably, the way to compete for these two places was to determine who was qualified to go to the second layer of heaven. If Muyu wanted to get back the place, he could only compare notes with them on alchemy. But Muyu knew nothing about alchemy. When he met the Grandmaster Pharmacist in Lanchi City, he thought that he had no fate with alchemy in this lifetime. Who knew that he would have to compete with alchemists now? Wasn't this forcing a duck to a perch? So Muyu, you are my fellow apprentice? Kai Lai generously wrapped his hand around Muyu's neck and said with a smile. He was very enthusiastic about this matter. Muyu tilted his head and asked, You didn't need to participate in the competition to get this place, right? Kai Lai scratched his head embarrassedly and said, Master directly gave this predetermined place to me and let senior brother Xiao Hua compete for this place. Why is comrade Xiao Hua making things difficult for me again? Muyu was rather helpless. Xiao Hua always disliked him. Last time in Lanxi City, he would mock and ridicule Mu Yu from time to time. He was also very narrow-minded. Xiaohua was the Grandmaster Pharmacist's head disciple. His talent in alchemy was naturally second to none. This immediately made Mu Yu a great enemy. The disciples of the other factions were even more unfathomable. With Mu Yu's reckless alchemy skills that didn't even know how to fuse alchemy, asking him to compete with other Danding School disciple for the Grandmaster's place was simply a joke. Brother, let me give you a heads up first. There are too many people with talent in alchemy in our school. Not only do you have to consider my senior brother, there's also Bi Wen Xuan and Su Zai. These people are not simple. Bi Wen Xuan is the most powerful. He will definitely take a place. Su Zai is also very strong. He's almost on par with my senior brother. Although they're only nascent soul stage, they're already able to refine basic 5th-tier medicinal pills. Kai Lai was actually also very talented. It was just that he was younger than those people and entered the school later than them. His cultivation was not as high as theirs. Therefore, he was not on the same level as those people. Thank you. You have doubled my confidence. Kai Lai's words made Mu Yu feel even more troubled. Not to mention the others, just Comrade Xiaohua alone was enough to make him helpless. Although Comrade Flowery was arrogant and haughty, as an apprentice of a Grandmaster Alchemist, he certainly wasn't a simple character. Mu Yu's understanding of pills was completely at the level of a layman. Talking about alchemy in front of Comrade Flowery was just asking for humiliation. In that case, to what extent did Mu Yu understand alchemy? He remembered that flour and water could be kneaded into a small round pill. He guessed that alchemy was about the same as this step. This was his very naive idea. Every time he thought about it, even he couldn't help but laugh. In the real story, the protagonist should have an unparalleled talent in alchemy. He should be able to stand out from a group of geniuses and obtain the Grandmaster's place without any controversy. Unfortunately, Mu Yu wasn't the protagonist of that story. When it came to alchemy, he was just blind. Useless. There's still a month. Why are you panicking? Kumu seemed very calm and spoke very smoothly. Chapter 186. As a major alchemy sect in the cultivation world, the Danding sect gathered the top alchemists in the 3 continents. A single word from an alchemist could make many cultivators go through fire and water for them, just because they could refine pills that would make cultivators go crazy. The Danding sect status was unquestionable. Thinking about how Mu Yu, a nascent soul stage rookie who didn't know how to refine pills, had to go to their territory to snatch a precious spot in the Tianwu realm, this trip was so exciting that it made one want to cry. The Danding sect's geographical location was also very good. The sect was located in the mountains. It was impossible to find these mountains without someone's guidance. The entire Danding sect was located in a huge array. From the outside, it looked like a desolate plain. Even if cultivators enter the plain, they wouldn't be able to find a trace of the Danding sect. Entering the Danding sect wasn't difficult with Kai Lai's help. The whole way was unimpeded. The disciples on duty didn't make things difficult for Mu Yu and Kumu. Kai Lai's face was big enough. If it was an ordinary disciple who brought outsiders in, they would definitely report to the elder in charge of security. After a detailed investigation, they would confirm that they weren't spies. However, with Kai Lai, it was much easier. The disciple on duty was in a pavilion. Behind the pavilion was a vast white plain. While Mu Yu was still wondering where the mountain was, Kai Lai had already greeted the disciple on duty. Then, he made a gesture with his hands and used his spiritual power to hit the fog in front of him. A ripple was stirred up in front of him, as if he had hit the water. Then, under Mu Yu's amazed gaze, he found that the front of him was like a painting being torn open. Several towering mountains were revealed. Let's go. Kai Lai took the lead and flew towards the mountain peak. Mu Yu followed closely behind with Kumu. Kumu didn't think it was a big deal. After all, he grew up here. However, it was Mu Yu's first time coming to the unfathomable Danding sect. The shock in his heart could be imagined. When he was in the Moyan mountain range, he was amazed when he saw the Qingsong school because his own Luochen mountain was shabby. When Muyu came to the Danding sect, he realized that the majestic Qing Song School in the Moyun Mountains was nothing in front of the Danding sect. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this place could be called a paradise. Dignified and elegant pavilions and terraces could be seen everywhere. Disciples of the Danding school dressed in alchemy attire could also be seen flying through the air on their swords. Their figures were ethereal, and the essence, qi, and spirit of their bodies were different from that of ordinary cultivators. The main peak was called Pill Tripod Peak. It towered into the clouds, and the sound of cranes could be heard. It was an important place of the sect, and also the place where the sect leader, Taoist Cloud Core, lived. The Pill Cauldron sect was extremely majestic. It was like a giant sleeping lion. It didn't make a sound, but once it did, it would amaze the world. It was heavy and sturdy, making people feel reverence. There were 4 mountain peaks around Danding Peak, each belonging to a different branch master. The 4 mountain peaks were the Black Rainbow Peak, which belonged to Yao Wuji's branch. The Tianji Peak belonged to Shi Dongtian's branch. The Freezing Peak belonged to Lung Bingshue's branch. The last branch was the Green Bamboo Peak, which belonged to the withered tree that ran away from home. On the main peak and the other peaks, one could vaguely see pavilions and terraces hidden among the treetops. These buildings were simple and elegant, and had existed for a very long time. It was enough to show the long history of the Danding sect. What shocked Muyu the most was that not long after he entered the Danding sect, he saw a huge pill cauldron about a few hundred feet high in the air. It was rotating slowly, and there was a faint golden light flowing around it. It was solemn and dignified, as if it could melt the whole world. It was Muyu's first time seeing such a huge pill cauldron. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and wondered how many precious materials were used to make such a huge pill cauldron. The Danding sect was indeed a rich and imposing place. How could an ordinary sect have such huge financial resources to build a pill cauldron as tall as a mountain? If they had spare money, they could have used it for anything else. This is the Danding sect's most precious treasure, which suppresses the fate of our Danding sect. You may not have heard of it. Kai Lai was about to introduce the origin of this huge pill cauldron to Muyu. However, the withered tree replied indifferently, "He has heard of it." Kai Lai's face revealed an awkward expression, and he tactfully stopped talking. They flew all the way to the Green Bamboo Peak. The withered tree let Kai Lai inform the sect leader, and then he and Muyu landed on the Green Bamboo Peak. "Old man, when have I heard of it? Before you came, you didn't tell me about the Danding sect's most precious treasure." Muyu couldn't help but say, "Can't you be a little more promising? No matter what, we are still people of the Danding sect. Don't be like frogs at the bottom of a well, speaking and acting like country bumpkins entering the city. Even if you don't know something, you have to pretend to know something. Don't weaken the reputation of our Green Bamboo Peak," the withered tree scolded. Muyu was scolded until he was speechless. He muttered, "Now you blame me for being a country bumpkin. Why didn't you tell me about the Danding sect's situation before? What's there to say about a broken sect?" The withered tree snorted coldly. Muyu secretly clicked his tongue. This old man's temper really made him helpless. He was also a weirdo who slandered his own sect like this. Besides, if such a magnificent and imposing Danding sect was a broken sect, then Muyu really couldn't think of any other sect that could be considered a good one. Compared with the other peaks with immortal auras, the Green Bamboo Peak looked very desolate, like an undeveloped barren mountain. The desolation and dilapidation were even worse than Muyu's Luochen Mountain. It was out of place with the other peaks of the Danding sect. This was the territory of the Withered Tree's branch. Unfortunately, after the Withered Tree left the Danding sect decades ago, the Green Bamboo Peak's branch completely declined and became very miserable. Everyone ran away, and the Withered Tree seemed to have become a general without an army. This mountain was different from the other peaks. The trees on the mountain were mainly made of bamboo. The bamboo forest was lush and the environment was very elegant. Under the Withered Tree's guidance, Muyu landed in the bamboo forest near the top of the mountain. From afar, he saw a dilapidated thatched hut. The roof seemed to have been blown away by the wind. At the same time, he also saw a few people busy with something there. Muyu looked at the withered tree with an inquiring gaze. Didn't the withered tree say that there was no one on the green bamboo peak? Who were these people? They looked like ordinary lumberjacks without any cultivation. How did mortals enter the Danding sect? They had already cut down a large piece of bamboo and were building something in an open space. Their hands and feet were very nimble. The withered tree shook his head. He didn't know these people and didn't understand why they were here. Muyu landed on the ground, then walked over and asked loudly, "Who are you people? What are you doing here?" Muyu's shout made the lumberjack stop. One of the strong men walked over and said respectfully, "Immortal, we are under young master Shi Minghui's orders to transform this place into a spirit beast park. We're just ordinary workers." Shi Minghui? It was really a small world. Shi Minghui actually stretched his hands into other people's territory. "This is my place. Go back and tell your young master Shi Minghui to behave himself and not stretch his hands and feet." Muyu looked at the half-demolished thatched hut and felt angry. If they came back a few days later, this place would really become a farm. The man revealed a bitter expression. "Little immortal, we are also working for someone else's money. If we don't finish the work in the stipulated time, we won't be able to get our wages. Look, I don't need to look. Leave immediately. I'm telling you, I'm not to be trifled with compared to Shi Minghui. Leave here, or I'll throw you out." Muyu's left hand clenched his right fist, and his knuckles cracked. The man's face turned pale. If a cultivator wanted to do something to them, they had no ability to resist. Shi Minghui and Muyu had a grudge, so they could only be cannon fodder. The man revealed a difficult expression. Just when he didn't know what to do, Shi Minghui's arrogant and domineering voice came at the right time. "What's wrong with you people? 2 days ago, I brought you in and asked you to start the work. Now you've only finished this? You're actually slacking off. Do you want to die?" Shi Minghui landed behind Muyu and shouted loudly. Muyu finally understood. It turned out that Shi Minghui left the Danding sect 2 days ago to find these ordinary people to work for him. Unfortunately, he met Muyu in the inn and was taught a lesson by Muyu. "Do you want to die?" Muyu turned around and stared at Shi Minghui with a slight smile on his face. He didn't mind beating this guy up again. When Shi Minghui saw Muyu, his face changed. "Why are you here? How dare you? This is the Danding sect. You actually dare to trespass into the Danding sect. If you don't surrender, I can spare your life." Muyu looked at Shi Minghui as if he was looking at an idiot. Such old-fashioned words came out of Shi Minghui's mouth. He really had no creativity. Shi Minghui was just bluffing. He had already seen Muyu's methods. He was simply not Muyu's opponent. However, he remembered that this was the Danding sect. With his grandfather's protection, he wasn't afraid. Although he didn't know who Muyu was, he knew that Muyu wouldn't dare to make a move on him here. Suddenly, he arrogantly shot a firework into the sky. That was a signal to summon the guards. "I remember that this is not your territory. You don't have the qualifications to cause trouble here, do you?" Muyu walked towards Shi Minghui. Muyu didn't care about what he had done. He had nothing to be afraid of. Since he had come to the alchemy sect to ask for a spot, this matter would definitely arouse the opposition of everyone in the alchemy sect. In any case, trouble would come sooner or later. It was better to make a big fuss and let everyone know about it. This way, there wouldn't always be some people who didn't have eyes coming here to cause trouble. Humph. What I do is not up to an outsider like you to tell me what to do. I, Shi Minghui, in the Danding sect, want you dead is just a matter of a word. Not to mention you. Even if the original owner of this place, Old Man Deadwood, came back, I wouldn't be afraid. Shi Minghui's arrogance disappeared, but when he saw Muyu coming over, he panicked and retreated. He had already learned about Muyu's methods. As soon as his voice fell, some guards appeared around him. They were mainly from the Jinan period. They were led by a man in the nascent soul stage. "Young Master Shi, what happened?" The man asked in a deep voice. "Commander Liu, how are you a guard? Didn't you notice this spy sneaking in? Hurry up and catch him." Shi Minghui scolded. When Commander Liu heard that it was a spy, his face suddenly changed. As a commander, He was responsible for the safety of the Danding sect. Letting an outsider sneak in was a serious dereliction of duty. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Commander Lu asked loudly. His cultivation was at the 6th heavenly layer of the nascent soul stage. His strength was above Muyu, but Muyu wasn't afraid of him. His strength wasn't determined by his cultivation. "Get out." Deadwood flashed a green token. There was a mysterious picture of a Danding sect on it. It was the symbol of the Danding sect. The token was octagonal and made of a special material. There was a refreshing aura coming from the token. There was also a faint light flickering on it. "This is..." Commander Lu's face changed slightly. As a commander, how could he not recognize this token? This was the keepsake of the 5 branch masters of the Danding sect. Why would this old man with no cultivation have this token? Shi Minghui also widened his eyes. He had seen this token at his grandfather's place. His grandfather never let him touch this thing. He didn't expect this old man to have it. Chapter 187. Are you Elder Ku Mu Chongqing? Commander Lu asked hesitantly. He knew all the branch masters of Danding sect. There was only one branch master that he had never seen before. That was Ku Mu Chongqing, who was rumored to have left Danding sect for no good reason. Even so, Ku Mu Chongqing was still the branch master of Danding sect's Green Bamboo Peak. What? Is there someone else called Ku Mu Chongqing? Muyu snorted. The name Ku Mu Chongqing was not common. This old man, who played with poison, had a bad reputation in the cultivation world. No one would dare to impersonate him. No matter how bad Elder Ku Mu is, he still has a certain level of cultivation. This old man is dressed so sloppily like a beggar. He doesn't even have a bit of cultivation. This branch master token must have been stolen by him. Commander Lu, didn't you think of this? Hurry up and kill this imposter, stinking old man. Shi Minghui shouted. Kumu had left Danding sect for 40 to 50 years. At that time, Shi Minghui was not even born yet. He had never seen Kumu before. Shi Minghui was humiliated by Muyu 2 days ago. At this moment, he only wanted Commander Lu to capture Muyu and make up for the humiliation. Who do you want to kill? Muyu's gaze turned cold. Now that it involved Kumu, he would not ignore it. After all, Kumu had just lost his cultivation. The huge difference made him very sensitive to certain things. Shi Minghui dared to threaten Kumu. As Kumu's disciple, it would be strange if he could tolerate it. Muyu's figure had already left the place. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Shi Minghui. His speed was so fast that even Commander Lu could not react. Stop! Commander Lu rushed towards Muyu. He did not expect Muyu to be so fast. Before he could touch Muyu, Muyu had already subdued Shi Minghui and retreated. He threw Shi Minghui to the ground and stepped on Shi Minghui's chest. Let him go. If anything happens to young Master Shi, Danding sect will never let you off. Commander Lu said in a threatening manner. Muyu's skills were beyond his expectations, but he remembered that this was the Danding sect. No one would dare to behave atrociously in the Danding sect, so he regained his confidence. How dare you treat me like this? I want you dead. Shi Minghui was being trampled under Muyu's foot, and his heart was extremely sullen. Not only did Muyu trample him under his feet, but he also used a silver needle that was stained with hemp to pierce his central acupuncture point, temporarily sealing his spiritual power and making him unable to move. Muyu hadn't learned the Poison Sutra from the dead tree for such a long time in vain. He was proficient in mastering what kind of poison could produce what kind of effect at which acupuncture points. This mafu was specifically used to treat all kinds of people who did not consume it. Shut up, you don't have the qualifications to speak. Muyu simply said. Commander Lu didn't dare to continue forward. He didn't know how Muyu restrained Shi Minghui, but he wasn't stupid. He could see that the dead tree didn't have the slightest bit of spiritual power, so he directly ran towards the dead tree, preparing to suppress the dead tree to threaten Muyu to release Shi Minghui. However, just as Commander Lu was about to grab the dead tree, a dragon's roar sounded from the dead tree's body, and a huge dragon's tail swept Commander Lu's body. Commander Lu was caught off guard and was sent flying. However, He was after all well-trained. He wasn't an alchemist like Shi Minghui, whose fighting strength couldn't keep up with his cultivation. His body tilted and immediately stabilized. The azure dragon used its body to surround the dead tree, tightly protecting it. No one knew how this huge azure dragon appeared, but the huge dragon might made those lumberjacks who didn't have cultivation tremble in fear. They all collapsed to the ground and curled up into a ball. Since the dead tree was pushed to the ground by Shi Minghui 2 days ago, Muyu persuaded Long Tongue to protect the dead tree at all times. Convincing Long Tongue wasn't an easy task. After all, when the dead tree threatened Muyu, he always said that he would refine Long Tongue into medicine. Long Tongue was reluctant at first, but later, under Little Shuai's provocation, she agreed. Long Tongue now had the strength of the nascent soul stage 4 or 5, which was more than enough to fight against Commander Lu. This is a dragon? Commander Lu's heart palpitated. Like most people, he had never seen a dragon before, but he had seen the description of a dragon. He felt that it was incredible. A dragon was actually protecting an old man who didn't have cultivation. Why? All of you stop. At this moment, a majestic aura swept past, covering everyone and making their hearts palpitate. Muyu frowned slightly and retreated to the dead tree's side, always on guard. This aura was like a vast sea, making him on the verge of collapse. He supported the dead tree with his spiritual power, blocking this aura for the dead tree. A middle-aged man with snow-white hair tied in a bun with a golden ribbon and dressed in a purple and gold robe appeared in the air. This middle-aged man's aura was condensed, but couldn't hide his majestic momentum. A superior aura spontaneously rose from his every move, making people feel awe and respect him. Taoist Yundan, the head of the Danding sect, was on the same level as the leaders of the 8 sects. With his cultivation at the combination realm, he was also a powerful existence in the third continent. Although he looked to be in his 40s or 50s, in fact, he was older than the dead tree. Some alchemists would deliberately preserve their appearance, unlike the dead tree who didn't care about his appearance at all. Sect leader, you came at the right time. These 2 people actually broke into the Danding sect and injured me. You have to uphold justice for me. Shi Minghui's shackles were released by Taoist Yundan, and he immediately cried and complained with snot and tears. Taoist Yundan frowned slightly and ignored Shi Minghui. His gaze fell on the huge dragon vine, and a look of amazement flashed through his eyes. The dragon vine was a divine medicine for alchemists. When the news that the dragonized dragon vine was going to be auctioned spread from the floating immortal island to the Danding sect, Taoist Yundan specially sent his disciples to buy the dragonized dragon vine. Unfortunately, many unforeseen events happened later. No one expected that the dragon vine would be ridden away by a kid from the Jinan period. Now, it had run to the Danding sect in confusion. Taoist Yundan retracted his gaze from the dragon vine and looked at the dead tree with a slightly complicated expression. You're back. The dead tree looked at Taoist Yundan indifferently, and his expression didn't change at all. He patted the dragon vine, and with a whistling sound, the dragon vine quickly shrank and coiled around the dead tree's arm. Taoist Yundan had never seen the dragonized dragon vine before, and when he saw the changes in the dragon vine, he was secretly amazed. He also felt helpless towards the dead tree's reaction. He knew that the dead tree didn't like to talk because of his stuttering. He paused and continued. This must be Nephew Muyu, the one who stirred up a commotion in the floating immortal island, right? Heroes indeed come from the young. It's rare to see someone from the Jindan period fight against someone from the nascent soul stage. Dead tree, you found a good disciple. Sect Master, these 2 are outsiders. Shi Minghui realized that the situation was not right. The sect master was speaking so politely to the other party. Did this mean that he didn't intend to stand up for him? We're all on the same side here. How can there be outsiders? This is your grandfather's senior brother, Elder Dead Tree. Also, why are these ordinary people without cultivation here? Why are you here? Taoist Yundan asked. Shi Minghui was speechless. According to the rules of the Danding sect, they were not allowed to bring ordinary people in without permission. This place had been abandoned for a long time. Sure Minghui had taken a fancy to the land here and decided to build a spirit beast garden on a whim. This kind of thing had to be reported to the sect. It was only because of his status that he dared to build this place without permission. Normally, Taoist Yundan would only turn a blind eye to this. However, Dead Tree had returned at this time. Even the sect master couldn't ignore this matter. It's time for you to restrain yourself. I'll punish you for this matter later. Commander Liu, send these ordinary people out of the Danding sect. Sure Minghui, leave this place immediately. How could Taoist Yunnan not know what Sure Minghui was doing? However, because his junior brother, Sure Dengtian, spoiled his grandson too much, he didn't want to say anything. Commander Liu obeyed the order and took the lumberjacks away. Sure Minghui also angrily glared at Mu Yu and left. He was probably going to complain to his grandfather. After the others left, Taoist Yundan looked at Dead Tree with mixed feelings. Kai Lai was standing behind Taoist Yundan. He was secretly winking at Mu Yu. In the end, you still scattered your cultivation. Taoist Yundan said slowly, to be honest, compared to your green hair, I still think that your white hair is more pleasing to the eye. Dead Tree didn't bother to be polite with him and directly said, Heavens beyond, the quota. Taoist Yundan had long known the purpose of Dead Tree's return. Even if Dead Tree was now an ordinary person, he wouldn't stop Dead Tree from returning to the Danding sect. However, he was the sect master after all. He had to consider things from the perspective of the sect. He didn't object to Dead Tree returning to the sect. However, if Dead Tree made this request as soon as he returned, it would make things difficult for him. You left the sect for so long. Is this the first thing you say when you return? Taoist Yundan was a little unhappy. The quota has always belonged to me. Dead Tree didn't have any fear. His previous cultivation wasn't much weaker than Taoist Yundan's. Even if he didn't have any cultivation now, he wouldn't put down his pride and show any weakness. Showing weakness wasn't his character. After you left the Danding sect, the sect took back the quota that originally belonged to you in order to maximize the benefits. Even if you have a disciple now, this is no small matter. All the disciples in the sect have been working hard for these 2 quotas. You've never done anything for the sect all these years, and now you're asking for the quota back? Even if I agree to it, what would the other disciples think? How can they be convinced? Taoist Yundan was also stating a fact. As the sect master, he couldn't be too biased. Otherwise, the disciples would be disappointed. Many disciples were working hard for these 2 quotas of Heavens Beyond. He wouldn't return the quota to Dead Tree just because of Dead Tree's words. Mu Yu noticed that the atmosphere was a little strange. He quickly stood up and said, Senior, the old man has been thinking about the Danding sect ever since he left. After all, he's a member of the Danding sect. Please don't be angry. Let's talk about it slowly. You call me senior? You called him old man? Why are you so distant? Or are you not Dead Tree's disciple? Taoist Yundan raised his eyebrows. Sect master, you must be joking. Mu Yu originally wanted to call you martial uncle, but he was worried that it would be too presumptuous and make you feel disgusted. As for calling my master old man, it's because I'm used to calling him that. Since he doesn't object, I won't change my way of addressing him. Besides, respecting one's master should be hidden in one's heart. It shouldn't be said, Martial uncle, what do you think? Mu Yu always remembered that he didn't belong to the Danding sect. The purpose of his trip wasn't to acknowledge his ancestors. In order to enter Heavens Beyond, he could only change his way of addressing him temporarily. Taoist Yundan's expression improved a little. Since you're Dead Tree's successor, calling me martial uncle isn't a big deal. You're quite good with words. You were able to safely send Dead Tree here after he lost his cultivation. Dead Tree didn't misjudge you. Mu Yu smiled. This Taoist Yundan was quite easy to talk to. However, Taoist Yundan suddenly changed the topic and asked, Did you know that 2 years ago, in the floating Immortal Island incident, one of the 9 people you killed was from our Danding sect? His name was Shi Yun, and he was also your fellow disciple. How should you deal with this matter? Mu Yu was shocked. He didn't know about this matter. At that time, he only killed Quicksword with his own strength. As for the others, he killed them without knowing. 6 of them were killed by Dead Tree. In order to prevent them from revealing the matter of Mu Yu's mutation, Dead Tree killed them. Dead Tree never cared about identity or background when he killed people. At that time, those people wanted to kill Mu Yu. Mu Yu was his appointed successor, so naturally, he wouldn't show mercy. He didn't expect that by a free combination of factors, he would kill people from his Danding sect. Chapter 188. This matter caught Mu Yu off guard. He didn't expect things to become so troublesome. However, Kumu wasn't surprised when he heard this. Instead, he said in a cold tone, "Greed deserves to die." Kumu didn't feel guilty about accidentally killing a disciple of the Danding sect. At that time, Shiryun and the others were besieging Mu Yu. How could Kumu allow anything to happen to Mu Yu? Taoist Yundan asked unhappily. Even if we're from the same sect? Mu Yu caught the word same sect and immediately said, "Since we're from the same sect, why didn't he stand up when I was besieged by other sects? Instead, he wanted to kill me? He didn't treat me as a fellow disciple at all. How did he know that you were from the same sect as him?" Taoist Yundan asked. "Then how did I know that he was from the same sect as me?" Mu Yu asked. Taoist Yundan snorted coldly. "When he was in trouble, he was wearing the clothes of the Danding sect. I don't think you don't know the symbol of the Danding sect, right?" Mu Yu really didn't know this. At least, he didn't care at that time. The situation was so critical at that time. How could he be in the mood to pay attention to this? However, he still argued. At that time, the old master had already said that the person who walked out of the valley would be his successor. I didn't meet the old master and didn't really confirm our master-disciple relationship. I didn't know that he was from the Danding sect. I think it's not just me. Many people don't know that he was from the Danding sect, right? However, Shiryun, who I accidentally killed, knew this. He revealed my identity in front of so many people with Huai Baiwan, so he knew that I was confirmed as the successor by the old man. He also knew that I was a member of the Pill Cauldron School. I only knew that I was the old master's successor, but I didn't know that I was from the Danding sect. Why did he choose to besiege me with the others? Mu Yu's analysis was sonorous and forceful. It was reasonable and well-founded, and Taoist Yundan didn't know how to refute it. From Mu Yu's point of view, he didn't know that the senior apprentice brother of the Danding sect was from the same sect as him, but that senior apprentice brother of the Danding sect knew about it. It was because the Danding sect had asked the Silhouette Being organization to help find the whereabouts of Mu Yu. Many people had heard about this matter, so that senior apprentice brother, Shiryun, must also know about it. Logically speaking, it was the senior martial brother who was mistakenly killed by the Dead Tree who was in the wrong. Mu Yu didn't do anything wrong. If the other party wanted to kill him, why would he talk about the righteousness of being a fellow disciple? Mu Yu continued, "At that time, I was just a cultivator in the Jindan period. That senior fellow apprentice must have been in the Yuanying period, right? I almost lost my life in front of those people. It was already good enough that I could drag one of them down with me. Did I still have the mood to choose who to kill and who not to kill? Besides, I really only killed Quicksword from the Sword-Washing Valley, and then I comprehended the true meaning of the Yuanying period at that time. However, I was disturbed by them and went crazy. I don't even know how many people I killed. If it weren't for my old man, who appeared in time to pull me back from the state of madness, I wouldn't be standing here today." Taoist Yundan didn't experience the scene at that time, but he could imagine how a cultivator in the Jindan period could still break through the siege of several Yuanying period cultivators. This kind of perseverance was worthy of praise in the entire 3 continents. "You're quite sharp-tongued. Everything you say makes sense. I really can't blame you for this." Taoist Yundan nodded slightly, and then said to the Dead Tree, "You're lucky to have accepted a good disciple. But this matter won't be settled so easily. If you want to take back the quota, it's not up to me alone. In 2 days, Junior Marshal Brother Yao Wuji should come out of seclusion. At that time, I'll let Junior Marshal Brother Yao Wuji, Junior Marshal Sister Lung, and Junior Marshal Brother Shir discuss this matter together. You can stay here for the time being. I'll have someone repair your house later." After Taoist Yundan finished speaking, he turned around and soared into the sky, wanting to leave. However, Muyu asked from behind. "Martial uncle, you said that this matter won't be settled so easily. Do you want to punish me?" Taoist Yundan looked at Muyu meaningfully. "I won't punish you. I just want to remind you that the disciple you killed was called Shi Yun. He was a disciple of your martial uncle Shi Dengtian and was his nominal grand disciple. Although he wasn't a close relative, and your martial uncle didn't value him very much, the relationship between your martial uncle and your master wasn't good. You better take care of yourselves." Muyu's face revealed a bitter expression. It really was one wave after another. How could it be so coincidental that he had formed a grudge with that Shi Yun? Muyu knew that Shi Dengtian and Kumu didn't have a good relationship. Not only did Muyu beat up Shi Dengtian's grandson, he also killed his grand disciple. When the time came, he would definitely use this as a pretext to make things difficult for Muyu. Kailai wanted to stay, but he was sent by Taoist Yundan to inform Elder Lung Bingxue of this matter. When Kailai heard this, he didn't look happy. It was obvious that this matter was very difficult for him. Elder Lung Bingxue wasn't someone to be trifled with. Although he was only passing on a message, he didn't want to face that cold woman. After sending off Taoist Yundan and Kailai, only Muyu and Kumu were left on the mountain. There was also a half-demolished thatched house. "You go the house." Kumu looked at the dilapidated house and signaled Muyu to fix it. Kumu himself found a large rock and sat down to rest. Muyu rolled his eyes. He had to do all the hard work. He couldn't let Kumu, an old man without any cultivation, do this. However, this matter wasn't difficult for Muyu. Those lumberjacks had already cut down a lot of bamboo. The bamboo was enough for Muyu to build a simple house. His biggest reliance was his ability to control trees. He could adjust the length of each bamboo at will. He could also make each bamboo stick tightly together. He didn't need any special adhesive paste at all. It took him an entire afternoon to build a decent bamboo house. As for the disciples sent by Taoist Yundan to build the house, they were all sent away by Muyu. Of course, he couldn't let them know what he was doing. However, he left behind the bed, tables, chairs, and other daily necessities they brought. The people of the Danding sect were mainly alchemists. They would refine fasting pills to prevent themselves from starving. Taoist Yundan sent people to deliver some, but these fasting pills were tasteless. It was like chewing wax. They didn't taste good at all. As a mortal, Kumu didn't like to eat this. Fortunately, Muyu prepared a lot of roast duck in advance. It was enough to fill his stomach. Little Shuai naturally ate the most, while the dragon vine only needed to absorb spiritual power. At night, Muyu scattered some medicinal powder around to prevent snakes and insects from disturbing them. In fact, it was unnecessary. With the dragon vine, they didn't need it at all. However, it was better to be safe. After all, there was Kumu, who was in imminent danger. The two people and the two beasts spent the night peacefully in the newly built bamboo house. Early the next morning, Kailai brought a lot of food over. Although Muyu didn't need these things, Kailai also secretly brought wine over. Muyu still didn't like drinking, but Kumu liked drinking. From Kailai, Muyu learned that Tian Ran would also come this time. When the time came, he could enter Sky Beyond with Tian Ran. The premise was that he got a spot. When Kumu heard about the Red Dust sect, his expression changed slightly. Muyu didn't notice it. In the afternoon, Kailai went back because he had something to do. Kumu asked Muyu to take him to another mountain. Kumu understood the situation here, so Muyu didn't object to where he wanted to go. He took Kumu to the top of the mountain. The two walked down the mountain for a while, and then saw a small lake surrounded by lush trees. The lake water was so clear that the bottom could be seen. There was a unique green hut by the lake. The roof was covered with green creepers. The hut was half above the lake, and a balcony faced the lake. The hut wasn't locked. Kumu pushed the door open and entered. This was a simple hut. There was only simple furniture in the house. There was a painting on the wall. It was a beautiful woman. She was fresh and beautiful. She had long black hair that reached her waist. She was dressed in a light gauze and looked like a lotus flower. Kumu walked over and reached out to touch the painting. His eyes were a little blurred. Muyu looked around curiously. Other than the painting, there was nothing else in the house. The house was fresh and clean, as if there was someone who cleaned it regularly. Kumu seemed to be immersed in his past memories. Muyu didn't disturb him. He just walked to the balcony and looked at the lake from the balcony. The scenery was pleasant. The occasional ripples on the lake made people feel tranquil. After a long time, Kumu came back to his senses. He walked out alone and walked to the other side of the lake. Muyu also followed. Kumu walked to a stone by the lake and stopped. There was a handsome Kumu character engraved on the stone. Kumu looked at the character and fell into a daze again. This place must have carried a lot of special memories of Kumu, which made him so abnormal. Muyu felt bored, so he wandered around by himself. There were trees all around, which was a good place for Muyu. Occasionally, he could see birds flying over the treetops. Muyu had the idea of catching 1 or 2 animals to barbecue. The birds were too small to fit between Xiao Shuai's teeth, let alone him. He wondered if there were any bigger animals. He walked around for a long time and finally found a white rabbit on a tree. Muyu looked at the chubby rabbit and thought that it would definitely be oily after being barbecued. It would taste even better. He didn't even think about why a rabbit would climb up a tree. Muyu blended into the trees and quietly touched the branch where the rabbit was resting. However, the rabbit was very alert. It vigilantly felt that someone was approaching. The moment Muyu was about to make a move, it jumped up high and fled into the distance. Huh, still so alert? I don't believe that I can't catch you. Muyu chased the rabbit's breath and continued to shuttle through the trees. However, Muyu underestimated the rabbit's endurance. Although Muyu locked onto the rabbit's breath, the rabbit's energy was very strong. Muyu chased for a quarter of an hour, but still couldn't catch up. Damn it, I'm going to eat you today. After Muyu blended into the trees, his speed was faster than his usual speed of flying on the sword. He suddenly accelerated and slowly closed the distance between him and the rabbit. He estimated the momentum of rushing out of the trees and jumped. With both hands, he firmly grabbed the rabbit that was jumping around the tree. Let's see if you could still run. Muyu skillfully took out a rope from his pocket and tied the rabbit's 4 feet. This was too easy for him. What made Muyu feel strange was that the rabbit was actually letting out a low cry. However, this didn't make Muyu let the rabbit go. After all, the rabbit was the result of his labor. Who cares if it can cry or not? He will eat it first. Chapter 189. Muyu hurriedly ran in the direction of the dead tree with the rabbit in his arms. He was very flustered. The dragon vine had been following the dead tree. Only when the dead tree encountered any danger would it make such a sound. Only Muyu could understand this sound. It was clearly calling Muyu for help. Muyu flashed out of the woods in the blink of an eye and arrived at the lakeside. At a glance, he saw the dead tree being strangled and hung in the air by a waterfall. The other end of the waterfall had no origin, as if it had appeared out of thin air. The dead tree's face was flushed, and his hands couldn't help pulling the waterfall around his neck. The strong sense of suffocation made his whole body tremble. He was just an ordinary person, so how could he withstand such a hanging? The dragon vine was trapped by an invisible force and was trying to break free. Where did this wastrel come from? How dare you do such a dirty thing? A voice as cold as an iceberg came from the lake. It was a middle-aged, beautiful woman. Her whole body was soaked in the water, and her hair was scattered on the surface of the water. Her delicate face revealed a mature beauty, and her snow-white skin was stained with drops of water, like a hibiscus in the water. However, at this moment, her face was very sullen. She stared at the dead tree, and her eyes seemed to be able to freeze everything in the world. The dragon vine had the cultivation of the nascent soul stage. To be able to control the dragon vine so easily, her strength must be above the nascent soul stage. She was not someone to be trifled with. In fact, except for some disciples in the Danding sect, there was no one to be trifled with. Even though the fighting strength of alchemists was generally low among the same level, they had heaven-defying elixirs to improve their cultivation. Their cultivation would not be too bad. Muyu hurriedly flew up and hugged the dead tree's body to relieve his pressure. Let go of my old man. He has no cultivation at all. You're a cultivator. How can you be so cruel? This is too much. The beautiful woman asked coldly. The Danding sect has never allowed mortals to enter. An old man, without cultivation, dares to Pigmy bathing? He deserves to die. Pigmy bathing? Strange. Muyu had only left for less than an hour. When he came to the lake just now, he didn't see anyone. How did this beautiful woman appear in the lake? Let go, let go. There must be some kind of misunderstanding here. Muyu yelled. The beautiful woman threw the dead wood onto the shore, and then the space around her distorted. With a splash, she disappeared into the water, and the clothes on the balcony disappeared with her. The beautiful woman's strength wasn't small, and Muyu couldn't stop her. He could only cushion Dead Tree's back, so that Dead Tree's old arms and legs wouldn't be injured. Muyu was in so much pain that he couldn't bear it. F***CK. Old master, even if you're a pervert, you have to look at the situation first. Why are you peeking at someone you can't afford to offend? If I had seen it, I would have accepted it. The main point is that I didn't see anything and still had to suffer like this. I'm really unlucky. Muyu cursed as he got up and tore off the silk around Kumu's neck. Only then did Kumu let out a heavy sigh. His chest heaved up and down as he took deep breaths. I didn't peek. Kumu's face turned red, and he spat out these words angrily after a long time. Kumu. The beautiful woman from before appeared in front of the two again. She looked at Kumu sitting on the ground with disbelief. She seemed very shocked. When Muyu got closer, he found that although this beautiful woman was charming, the years still left a few slight traces in the corners of her eyes. Her eyes exuded the vicissitudes of life that were not in sync with middle-aged people. It was the profoundness of having experienced many years of wind and frost. I didn't peek. Kumu didn't look at her eyes and awkwardly repeated. It turned out that these two people knew each other. Muyu was relieved. It was good that they knew each other. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Is this the first thing you did to me when you came back? Pigmy bathing? The beautiful woman calmed down her shocked expression and returned to her cold expression. I didn't peek. Kumu avoided her gaze and said this for the third time. Who are you? Why did you sneak into my Danding sect? The beautiful woman turned her gaze to Muyu. I didn't sneak in. I came in openly. Who are you? Since this person knew Kumu, she must be an elder. Muyu didn't dare to be too arrogant. She is the branch master of Freezing Peak. Kumu explained in a low voice so that Muyu wouldn't speak nonsense and annoy her. Obviously, this woman wasn't as easy to bully as Shi Minghui and Commander Lu. Branch master of Freezing Peak? Isn't that the elder Lung Bingbing that Kai Lai mentioned? Muyu blurted out. Then, he tactfully shut his mouth. This beautiful woman was the elder Lung Bingbing that made the arrogant and despotic Shi Minghui run away with his tail between his legs. She gave Muyu the feeling that she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Is that what Kai Lai called me? Elder Lung Bingbing's entire body emitted a cold aura that made people involuntarily shiver. No, I didn't say anything. Muyu muttered in his heart. Brother Kai Lai, I've let you down. The next time you see Lung Bingbing, you better pray for yourself. I heard from Senior Brother Sect Master that you came back yesterday, but came here today. Is it because you don't want to see me? Lung Bingbing looked at Kumu again. Her words didn't carry any emotion. You don't know here. Kumu stood up and sighed. He still didn't dare to look at Lung Bingbing. Let me explain. He meant that he didn't know that you would be here. Muyu interrupted. When Kumu stuttered, very few people could understand him. It often brought unnecessary confusion to the people he was talking to. Muyu felt that he needed to help explain. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if Kumu couldn't explain clearly and made things worse. I know what he said. You don't need to speak. Lung Bingbing glanced at Muyu. Muyu felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. He couldn't help but shiver. He quickly shut his mouth. He was just translating out of kindness. Why was she so fierce? She was really a tigress. You hear why? Kumu's words were very concise. Ordinary people couldn't understand at all. Only Muyu could understand what he wanted to say. However, Lung Bingbing in front of him seemed to know what Kumu meant. Why can't I be here? This is the territory of the Danding sect. I am an elder of the Danding sect. Tell me, why can't I be here? Could it be that only people like you who have left the sect for decades are allowed to come here? Lung Bingbing questioned. There seems to be something wrong with Lung Bingbing's tone. It seems like she has some deep hatred with Kumu. What did Kumu do to her decades ago? Could it be that he did something dirty? Muyu snickered in his heart. He still couldn't imagine what dirty things Kumu, who was like a piece of wood, would do. This is not your place. Kumu was still unafraid and stubborn. Now you're telling me that this is not my place? Then who is the one who did something wrong? Leaving here at all costs? Lung Bingbing asked. Muyu finally understood that the two of them must have had some sort of inexplicable entanglement in the past. Perhaps it was because of love. The dead tree might have played the role of a heartless man, and the woman who was betrayed was this ice-cold elder. You guys talk. I won't disturb you guys. I'll go eat something. Muyu felt that he shouldn't stay here for long. What kind of small dispute did they have between them have to do with him? In any case, from the looks of it, the ice-cold elder would definitely not make a move on the dead tree again. It was better to go and eat his own hair. But when he turned his head, there was no sign of the rabbit. Wait for me. Kumu grabbed Muyu's clothes. He didn't seem to want to stay here. You big peeked at me bathing, and the little one wants to eat my spirit pet. Do you want to leave after doing these things? Lung Bingbing held the big white rabbit in her hands. The rabbit nestled in her arms and rubbed against her chest from time to time. It was comparable to that shameless guy, Xiao Shuai. Muyu was dumbfounded. It turned out that this rabbit belonged to someone else. This was truly unlucky to have such a coincidence. It was no wonder that it took him a lot of effort to catch this rabbit. It turned out that it still had spirituality. Lung Bingbing had actually come here when the dead tree was looking at the stone. Usually, disciples were not allowed to come here, so she didn't notice anyone by the lake. She just went into the water by herself, but she didn't expect to see the dead tree when she looked up. The dead tree had left for decades, but she didn't recognize it immediately. She thought that it was some reckless disciple, so she directly hung the dead tree up. As for the dragon vine that discovered that something was wrong, it was imprisoned by the ice-cold elder as soon as it grew larger. This is a misunderstanding. This is really a misunderstanding. I didn't know it was yours. If I knew this rabbit was yours, I wouldn't have dared to do this. Old man, you haven't seen each other for so many years, so you must have a lot of private things to say. I won't be a third party anymore. This cold and icy aura made him very uncomfortable. If he stayed any longer, a good summer would turn into winter. You. The dead tree's face was a little ugly. Muyu's casual mention of third party made him very embarrassed. You stinking brat. Muyu said helplessly. Go back. I'll settle the score with you when we get back. Muyu sighed again. The dead tree's face was full of black lines. He was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened, but he didn't know what to do. Muyu had said everything he wanted to say. However, when Lung Bingbing heard Muyu say that he was a third party, she didn't get angry. Instead, she looked at Muyu meaningfully and then shifted her gaze to the air. The dragon vine is quite a good thing. Lung Bingbing looked at the struggling dragon vine in the air. Senior, this dragon vine is to protect the old man. You also know that the old man doesn't have any cultivation now, so he needs something to protect himself. Do you think you should let it go? Muyu quickly said, bringing the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon from the Danding sect. You are really old and confused. We're the holy land of alchemy here, and the dragon vine is coveted by everyone. Can you really defend against it? Lung Bingbing waved her hand, and the dragon vine broke free and flew back to Muyu's side. It looked at Lung Bingbing vigilantly. Go back. The dead tree really didn't want to stay a moment longer. He urged Muyu. Muyu had to take Muyu and soar into the air. He found that Lung Bingbing didn't stop him, so he quickly took the dead tree and ran away. Chapter 190. For the next 2 days, Kumu shut himself in his room. Muyu thought that he was worried about meeting Lung Bingxue again, so he shut himself in his room. When Muyu asked him what kind of relationship he had with Lung Bingxue, Kumu refused to talk about it. He even scolded Muyu. Muyu was used to being scolded by Kumu every day. However, he knew that if he wanted to get the quota, he had to get the approval of a few people. One of them was Elder Lung Bingxue. Kumu might have done something heartless to her. When he came back, he accidentally peeked at her bathing. Furthermore, he wanted to eat her spirit beast. It would be strange if she was willing to stand on his side. Kai Lai didn't know which side his master would stand on. Taoist Yundan seemed to remember their old relationship, so he would probably agree. Sure, Deng Tian would definitely be against it. Lung Bingxue seemed to have an old grudge with Kumu. Her attitude was also worrying. Kumu didn't show any signs of worry. He was thinking about something by himself every day. Muyu felt like he was the emperor who wasn't worried, but the eunuch was worried. A rookie who didn't know how to concoct pills came to Danding's sect to ask for the precious quota of Sky Beyond. 2 days later, the medicine master finally came out. The 5 branch masters who could make decisions were all present. Kai Lai ran over to inform them to go to Danding's sect's meeting hall to discuss this matter. It was Muyu's first time coming to the main peak. The simple and grand architectural style made him put away his lazy attitude. Danding's sect was the holy land in the eyes of all alchemists in the cultivation world. Danding Peak was the core of Danding's sect. It was very sacred in the hearts of all Danding's sect disciples. The meeting hall that symbolized Danding's sect was dignified and solemn. It was called Danding Hall. Streaks of golden formation patterns appeared from time to time and surrounded the entire hall. No disciple dared to fly here. Usually, very few disciples came here. Every time the Pill Cauldron School had something important to discuss, all the branch heads and elders would gather here to discuss. Walking up the greenstone stairs, Kai Lai stopped at the entrance of the hall. He didn't have anything to do today, so he couldn't go in. Muyu still wanted to ask Kai Lai some other things, but Kumu had already stepped into the great council hall. Muyu had no choice but to follow him. The conference hall did not have any extravagance, only the vicissitudes left behind by the passage of time. Every decoration was carved with the marks of the passage of time, explaining the stability of a large sect. Inside the hall, Taoist Yundan was sitting upright in his seat, overlooking everything. On his left sat Elder Bing Shan, Lung Bingxue, and on his right sat a black-robed old man that Muyu had never seen before. He must be sure Deng Tian. His vulture-like face stared fixedly at the dead tree. His eyes flashed with a hint of playfulness, like a poisonous snake staring at its prey. It was very unfriendly. Next to Shi Deng Tian stood Shi Mingwei. He was looking at Muyu with an arrogant face. With his grandfather as his backing, he was much more confident. Next to Lung Bingxue sat the medicine master in a white robe. Compared to Muyu, the medicine master's aura was more stable. He was already a spirit-severing expert. At this moment, he was thinking calmly. Seeing Kumu, he smiled. When he glanced at Muyu, he nodded. He had already heard about Muyu from Kai Lai. There were also some elders, either with white hair or full of vigor. These were the pillars of each branch. They were also the high-level alchemists of Danding's sect. Each of them was a powerful existence in the cultivation world. Usually, it would be good to see 1 or 2 of them. Muyu didn't expect that today. All of them would gather here because of Kumu. It could be seen how important the second layer of heaven was to them. Kumu walked to the seat next to him without any scruples. There was already a seat reserved for him there. He didn't even say hello. Muyu knew that the people sitting there were all Kumu's senior brothers and sisters. Kumu's status was also very high in Danding's sect. Even if he was just a mortal now, he was still the branch master of Green Bamboo Peak. Naturally, he didn't have to salute. Muyu couldn't be so casual. He greeted each of the seniors one by one. When he asked about Shi Deng Tian sneered. Muyu curled his lips and didn't say anything. You're the Muyu who killed my grand disciple. Your martial nephew from the same sect? Shi Deng Tian took the initiative to attack. Muyu was not surprised by this at all. Muyu smiled slightly. Martial nephew Shi's death is a regrettable thing. Senior, can't you see clearly who is right and who is wrong in this matter? Senior brother sect leader told me before, but no one knows what happened at that time. How can you conclude that Shi Yun wanted to rob you based on your one-sided statement? Shi Deng Tian said. Since no one knows what happened at that time, Why do you think that I killed senior brother Shi Hai? Muyu asked back. Shi Dingtian said calmly. You have already admitted to this matter to the sect leader that day. Today, you deny it. You deceived the sect leader. How should you be punished? Muyu shook his head and said unhurriedly, I didn't deceive the sect leader. That day, I clearly told the sect leader that I was in the middle of a breakthrough. I was disturbed and went mad. I lost my normal thinking. Whether I killed Shi Yun or not has always been determined by all of you. Because I didn't know, I couldn't deny it. But if you want to get to the bottom of it, everyone here is an intelligent person. You should know that there is no way to investigate this matter. Don't try to twist words and force logic. Shi Yun's death is related to you. This matter can't be let go so easily. Before this matter is investigated, as a suspect, you must. I killed him. Shi Dangtian, what can you do to me? Kumu suddenly said. There was only one possibility for him to speak so smoothly. He was angry. Senior brother, you don't have to take responsibility for your own disciple, right? Shi Dangtian narrowed his eyes. As a junior, Shi Yun tried to kill his martial uncle. This is a disgraceful thing. Don't you think he deserves to die? Kumu looked at Shi Dangtian without fear. Shi Dangtian felt uncomfortable being stared at. Senior brother, do you have evidence? Shi Dangtian asked. Shi Yun died because his dantian was pierced. Can a Yuanying realm cultivator do this to another Yuanying realm cultivator? Kumu said. Everyone was not stupid. This kind of killing method was very exquisite. It was impossible for a person in a deranged state to do such a thing. Only a person whose cultivation was many times higher than the deceased could do this. They had thought of this a long time ago. However, in order to make things difficult for Muyu, they intentionally or unintentionally skipped over it. They didn't expect Kumu to admit it so directly. It seemed that there was no need to investigate this matter. Kumu didn't need a reason to kill. If a junior wanted to die, he could only blame himself. In fact, Taoist Yundan already knew that this matter was done by Kumu. The reason why he didn't directly say it that day was to give Kumu face. Let's forget about this matter. Today, I didn't ask you to come here to discuss this matter. It's about the second layer of heaven's quota. Kumu wants to take back this quota. What do you think? Taoist Yundan said in a deep voice. Senior brother, you haven't contributed anything to the sect for so many years. Now that you've become a cripple, you want to take back such an important quota. Do you think this is reasonable? Shi Dangtian bluntly pointed out that Kumu was already a cripple. His tone was mixed with ridicule, which made Muyu quite angry. For so many years, my master has given such an important quota to the sect to deal with by themselves. He didn't get any benefits. Isn't this a contribution? Muyu replied. He had already thought of how to answer this question. How dare you? My grandfather is asking your master now. Why are you interrupting? Shi Minghui loudly questioned from above. You shut up. Everyone here is your grandmaster and martial uncles. How can you, a junior, be shouting and yelling here? Don't tell me that you're so lacking in manners as a junior. I'm your martial uncle. How dare you yell at me? Get out of here. Muyu said righteously. He couldn't bear to see this eyesore here. Now he suppressed his identity and scolded him. It was also good to vent his anger. What qualifications do you have to be my martial uncle? Shi Minghui was unable to restrain his anger. Outsider? Just now, the sect leader and your grandfather treated me as Shi Yun's martial uncle to deal with this matter. You don't admit that I'm a member of the Danding sect. Are you disobeying their decision? Do you think that their words are wrong? You, a junior, said such irresponsible words. How should you be punished? After Muyu finished saying these words, she felt great in her heart. The identity of martial uncle was useful. It suppressed Shi Minghui until his face turned green and red. Thinking about how he was now, like Kai Lai, following a good master and taking advantage of seniority, Shi Minghui was at a disadvantage. All right, Shi Minghui, you go out. There's nothing for you to do here, Taoist Yundan said. Shi Minghui was furious, but he didn't dare to flare up. He could only leave angrily. All kinds of important matters in the sect have always been decided by us. I will make a decision based on everyone's opinions. You only need to tell me your attitude. Taoist Yin Dan looked at Lung Bingshu. Junior sister, do you agree with this matter? Although there were many elders present, the final decision was still in the hands of the other four branch masters. Lung Bingshu stood up and met Kumu's eyes. Give me a reason to agree. Her words were like questioning Kumu. Muyu was sweating for Kumu. Last time, he peeked at her bathing. This time, how would Kumu answer to make Lung Bingshu agree? Kumu looked away. He was silent, deliberately avoiding Lung Bingshue's eyes. He didn't seem to want to say anything to Lung Bingshue. It was as if there was a knot in his heart that couldn't be untied. Humph! Lung Bingshue was a little annoyed. She turned around and left the hall. Ah, what is this? Muyu was a little dumbfounded. Why did Lung Bingshue leave so casually? Did this count as agreement or objection? He really wanted to ask Kumu what kind of unresolvable enmity did he have with Lung Bingshue. At this juncture, he still refused to show weakness to others. He was obviously asking for trouble. Taoist Yun Dan sighed helplessly. He didn't stop Lung Bingshue from suddenly leaving. He naturally understood Lung Bingshue's character. He said, Junior sister Lung didn't say anything, so it's treated as abstention. What about junior brother Sure? Needless to say, this old fellow was definitely against it. Muyu really had a headache now. To be honest, he didn't like to go to the second heaven of the sky. It was strenuous and unrewarding, but he had to go. Originally, seeing the friendship between Lung Bingshue and Kumu, he should have been able to obtain Lung Bingshue's support. Unfortunately, Kumu didn't know what was good for him and Mr. Vote. Sure Deng Tian looked at Kumu cunningly. Then, his gaze shifted to Muyu. His gaze made Muyu feel uncomfortable. He touched his chin and slowly said, I agree. What? Muyu suspected that he had heard wrongly. This fellow would agree? Did he eat the wrong medicine? If he agreed, then why would he make things difficult for him? What was the use of saying so much nonsense to make things difficult for him? Didn't he have a grudge with Kumu? He couldn't be plotting something, right? Muyu's mind was suddenly filled with big and small question marks. The more he looked, the more he felt that there was something wrong with this vulture fellow. Taoist Yin Dan was a little surprised, but he didn't show it. He calmly continued to ask, Junior brother Yao, what do you think? I object, Master Yao said slowly. This time, Muyu was really taken aback. What the hell was going on? He agreed to what he should object, but he objected to what he should agree to. Muyu always thought that Master Yao would definitely agree. After all, he had a friendship with Master Yao in the past. He didn't expect him to object. Could it be that he also had some old grudge with Kumu? Chapter 191. Muyu looked at Medicine Master in confusion and found that Medicine Master was also looking at him meaningfully. Medicine Master hadn't said anything from the beginning to the end. Muyu had always regarded him as someone who supported him and had forgotten about him. I have met Nephew Muyu once before. I want to talk to him alone. Medicine Master obtained the sect master's approval and brought Muyu outside the main hall. He waved his hand and ripples appeared in the surrounding space, isolating them from the outside world. Senior, I don't know if I have neglected you or... Muyu hesitantly asked. I don't agree with you entering the second layer of heaven because I am very curious about your purpose. Medicine Master said. Purpose? Elder Kumu wants me to enter the second layer of heaven to find some herbs for him. That is my purpose, Muyu respectfully said. Medicine Master shook his head. I don't want to know this. What I want to know is your identity. Only inner sect disciples of our Pill Cauldron sect can enter the second layer of heaven. In other words, they must be people of our Pill Cauldron sect. I remember you saying that you came from the Falling Dust sect. You should have a master. Why did you choose Kumu as your master? What is your purpose? Medicine Master's tone suddenly became serious. Being questioned by a spirit-severing expert, Muyu felt quite pressured. Originally, Medicine Master was thinking about this problem. He considered it from the perspective of the Pill Cauldron sect. He believed that Muyu deliberately hid the fact that he had a master from Kumu to achieve an unspeakable purpose. Muyu cupped his hands and said, Senior, Elder Kumu knows that I have a master. What? He knows? Then why did he accept you as his disciple? Has he become senile? Medicine Master asked in surprise. Muyu bitterly smiled. Even he couldn't explain this matter clearly. Kumu's actions had always been unique. Who would have thought that he found a successor just to save someone who had a grudge against him? Senior, I'm afraid that only Elder Kumu can explain this matter clearly to you. I don't have any goals, and I don't want to go to the second layer of heaven. It's just that he taught me a lot of things, and I can't refuse his request. But I've never had any disloyalty towards him, and I've never done anything to let him down. Senior can rest assured about this. The Medicine Master didn't reveal his true identity in front of the sect leader and the others. He was protecting himself for the sake of their old friendship. Otherwise, it would definitely cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Grandmaster Pharmacist stared into Muyu's eyes. He wanted to see if Muyu was lying. Unfortunately, Muyu was telling the truth. He had nothing to hide. I'll ask him for confirmation on this matter. He walked on a different path from us, which led to his current situation. Thanks to your protection, I can see that he trusts you a lot. I hope you don't betray his trust. If I find out that you're using my brother's honest character to do something shameful, I don't care whose disciple you are. I'll definitely kill you. Grandmaster Pharmacist's eyes were like torches. This empty threat made Muyu very uncomfortable. With Muyu's character, he would not do anything to hurt the dead tree. The Medicine Master also said this for the sake of the honest and unsociable dead tree. Muyu could also understand why the Medicine Master said this. Senior, don't worry. I'm not that kind of person who forgets favors. Muyu said. Grandmaster Pharmacist looked at Muyu. The strength and ability that Muyu had shown so far was 1 in a million. Since his brother believed in this sunny youth, he couldn't say anything. Muyu had a master. Taoist Yundan didn't know, and he couldn't let Shi Dangtian know. Grandmaster Pharmacist knew that this matter was very tricky. He was on Kumu's side, but he also had to protect the interests of Danding's sect. But I still want to thank you. If you didn't help me remove some of the wood dregs in my body, I'm afraid I wouldn't have broken through to the spirit-severing stage. This old man won't forget this kindness. Grandmaster Pharmacist said. Muyu was a little surprised. No wonder Grandmaster Pharmacist broke through from the out-of-body stage to the spirit-severing stage. It was because of him. I hope you remember what I said just now. Grandmaster Pharmacist didn't say anything else. He took Muyu back to the main hall. Then Grandmaster Pharmacist said to Taoist Yundan, Master, I don't object to this matter. The master looked at Grandmaster Pharmacist and Muyu with a little surprise. He didn't know how Muyu convinced Grandmaster Pharmacist. 2 days ago, he sent someone to investigate Muyu's origin. Unfortunately, Muyu seemed to have suddenly appeared in the 3 continents. He didn't have any past or background. The only trace of Muyu was from Lanshi City. Then, he walked into the Withered Tree Valley, which was forbidden by all the disciples of the sect. Then, he used the power of the Jindan period to cause chaos on Fu Xian Island, which was full of nascent soul stage geniuses. He also killed many young talents of the nascent soul stage. All these things added up didn't seem like something an ordinary person would do during the Jindan period. The master was a little incredulous. He pondered for a while and finally said, If we take this place back directly, I'm afraid many people will not be convinced. Although you all agree, I have to take care of the feelings of the disciples. Muyu, if you have the ability, then fight for this place yourself. Our Danding sect advocates the way of alchemy. If you're really talented, then prove yourself to the other disciples of the Danding sect. Only in this way can you convince the others. Muyu wasn't surprised by this decision. He knew what the sect leader was worried about. The sect leader couldn't find out Muyu's background and suspected Muyu's purpose like the Medicine Master. However, because the dead tree trusted Muyu, he didn't say anything. However, he still had to follow the rules. If Muyu really obtained the true teachings of the dead tree, then he had to rely on his strength to convince the other disciples of the Danding sect. The dead tree and Muyu bid farewell to them and returned to their residence. During this time, the Medicine Master came to talk to the dead tree alone to confirm what Muyu had said. Unfortunately, the dead tree wasn't a person who liked to explain, so the Medicine Master helplessly left. Old man, What kind of entanglement do you have with the ice-cold elder? Today, you didn't even fight for her support. You almost couldn't get that place back. Muyu couldn't help but ask curiously. The dead tree didn't want to answer this question. He only said indifferently, place definitely back, sure ding, Tian will agree. You already knew that sure ding Tian would agree. Why? Muyu asked, puzzled. The dead tree didn't explain too much. Be careful, be safe. Inside, make a move. Me and him, old enmity, he will find you trouble. Muyu understood. Sure ding Tian seemed to have an unresolvable grudge with the dead tree. No wonder the way he looked at the dead tree just now was obviously not right. He thought about it carefully and realized that there was no harm in him entering the second layer of heaven for sure dang Tian. At most, he would occupy a spot, and that spot might not necessarily be his sex people. But what can he do to Muyu in the second layer of heaven? The second layer of heaven can only allow nascent soul stage people to enter, right? Little Marshall interrupted. Sure dang Tian would definitely let Sure Minghui in. Sure Minghui wasn't Muyu's opponent outside, and he was even more not Muyu's opponent in the second layer of heaven. It was impossible for him to make a move on Muyu. It was also impossible for them to join forces with the other disciples of the Pill Cauldron School to deal with Muyu. Kai Lai was on Muyu's side, and Lung Bingshue's disciples wouldn't participate in this matter. The sect leader's disciples wouldn't do such a thing. There was still one spot left. Even if it was from Sure Dang Tian's sect, it was impossible for him to do anything bad to Muyu. However, the dead tree's next words made Muyu cautious. The dead tree said that the wife of the Stargate sect leader was Sure Dang Tian's daughter. In other words, Sure Dang Tian was the father-in-law of the Stargate sect leader. The dead tree thought that Sure Dang Tian would definitely unite with the people of Stargate to make a move on Muyu in the second layer of heaven. Muyu had the dragon vine and the dead tree's inheritance in his hands. Both of these things were things that the world wanted to get their hands on. They did not dare to make a move on Muyu under the eyes of Taoist Yundan. However, the situation in the second layer of heaven was changing rapidly. Even Taoist Yundan could not protect Muyu. Can't I just leave the dragon vine outside? Muyu said. He had always let the dragon vine protect the dead tree. He did not plan to bring the dragon vine in this trip. The dead tree shook his head. The dragon vine and Muyu would definitely come in handy. It was impossible for the dead tree to protect the dragon vine outside. Next, the Danding sect would receive many experts from other sections. The fish and the dragons were mixed together. Many people already knew what Muyu had done. They understood that the missing dragon vine was also on Muyu. Many people coveted the dragon vine. Taoist Yundan and the medicine master could not always protect the dead tree. Lung Bingxue was the same. As long as people found out that the dragon vine was on the dead tree and there was no one to protect the dead tree, they would make a move on him. It was dangerous to bring the dragon vine inside and outside. In comparison, it was safer for the dragon vine to follow Muyu. Muyu did not expect that the dragon vine, which he had casually saved, would become an existence that threatened his safety. However, the dragon vine was a special existence. Muyu could not just leave it alone. Why don't you trust me to protect you at all times? Just as Muyu was feeling distressed, Lung Bingshue's figure appeared beside Muyu. Muyu was shocked. He did not expect this person to appear. Senior. Muyu quickly greeted her. Lung Bingxue ignored Muyu and only looked at the dead tree. There was still a trace of anger on her face, as if her anger in the great hall had not dissipated. She was here to ask for an explanation. The dead tree also did not expect Lung Bingxue to suddenly appear here. His face stiffened, and he still did not have the courage to look her in the eye. You've been running away for your entire life, just because you don't dare to accept me? I've waited for you for so many years, and it wasn't easy for me to wait for you back. Even if you fall into this state and become a cripple, a useless old man, I still don't dislike you. I can take care of you for the rest of your life, but after so many years, you just can't forget her, can you? Lung Bingxue pointed at the dead tree and almost roared out. Muyu shrunk his neck. This icy elder had lost control of his emotions, and his aura was somewhat irritable. Muyu quickly retreated a few steps. According to this scene, the development of the situation was that the icy elder liked the dead tree, but the dead tree liked another woman. It was very likely that it was the woman in the portrait that Muyu had seen in the lakeside hut that day. The dead tree had refused to accept Lung Bingxue for so many years, and he had not been together with that mysterious woman. He did not know what had happened to that woman, but perhaps the dead tree had not walked out of its grief. This was Muyu's guess. If that was the case, then Muyu felt that the icy elder was actually an infatuated person. After so many years, he still liked the dead tree. As for the dead tree, there was a hurdle in his heart that he could not cross. After returning, he had been avoiding Lung Bingxue. Perhaps it was because he felt inferior, or perhaps it was because he felt that he had let down Lung Bingxue, but he was unwilling to face Lung Bingxue. I've already let you down once. I can't let you down a second time, the dead tree said in a daze. He was not angry, but he clearly expressed his meaning. What? Lung Bingxue suddenly pulled out a sword and placed it across the dead tree's neck. This made Muyu nervous. He was afraid that the dead tree would say something unpleasant, causing Lung Bingxue's hand to tremble and end the dead tree's life. I've let you down, but I have more important things to do now. After I'm done, if you're still willing to wait for me and don't dislike my current appearance, I'll come back and stay in the Pill Cauldron sect forever. The dead tree did not dare to look at Lung Bingxue. His heart was filled with guilt. He was afraid that he would see his cowardice in Lung Bingxue's eyes, but he had no other choice. He had to do this. What is it? I can help you do it. What else can you do in your current state? Lung Bingxue asked. The dead tree stubbornly shook his head. I can't help you get involved in this matter. Why can't I do it? I'm willing to do anything for you. I'm not afraid of getting involved. I don't want to see you die without knowing why. Lung Bingxue said. I'm sorry. The dead tree still shook his head. You'll always be a self-righteous bastard. Lung Bingxue left behind these words, then merged into the void and disappeared. After a long time, Muyu was finally sure that the ice-cold elder had left. He let out a sigh of relief. He was even more curious about the dead tree's so-called matter. The dead tree wanted to help Feng Haochen recover his cultivation, but this was not his goal. He could only do that with the help of Feng Haochen's power. What kind of past did Feng Haochen and the dead tree have that made the dead tree hate Feng Haochen so much, and that he had no choice but to borrow Feng Haochen's power to do something? Muyu could not understand these questions. If the dead tree was unwilling to say, he could do nothing about it. Chapter 192. The Danding School had a total of 6 spots to enter the outer sky. Aside from the 4 spots that were predetermined, the remaining 2 spots would be allocated to the best disciples through 3 rounds of competition. The Danding School was mainly made up of alchemists. Needless to say, these 3 rounds of competition were inseparable from alchemy skills. This was a huge problem for Muyu. A person who didn't have the qualifications for alchemy had to face the technical work of rolling pills. To compete with a group of talented alchemists from the Pill Cauldron School in alchemy, one didn't even need to think about how ridiculous it was. Deadwood himself was not good at alchemy skills. He had turned to the art of poison. Naturally, Muyu did not know how to make pills either. The effects of Deadwood's concoctions were comparable to that of pills. However, if Muyu were to compete with the Danding School's disciples using poison, he would definitely not be recognized by the Danding School. If he wanted to legitimately win one of the spots, he would have to follow the rules of the Danding School. Fortunately, Deadwood was the branch leader of the Green Bamboo Peak of the Danding School. As the branch leader's true disciple, Muyu still had some privileges. For example, Muyu could enter the Danding School's Chamber of Alchemy, which was not open to the public. The Danding School's Chamber of Alchemy was the essence of the Danding School's 100 years of accumulation. It recorded the alchemy skills of generations of famous alchemists, as well as various precious pill recipes. To the alchemists of the world, it was a huge fortune. It was also the foundation of the Danding School. The Danding School was located on Danding Peak. Unlike Deadwood's Green Bamboo Peak, Danding Peak did not even have a decent house. Danding Peak was the entire school's most important place. As the main peak, Many of the important buildings of the Danding School were located there. There were rows upon rows of pavilions. Muyu searched around Danding Peak alone. Deadwood did not tell him the exact location, so he could only explore on his own. Unfortunately, he was half a person with no sense of direction. After wandering around for half a day, he still could not find it. Along the way, he met many disciples of the Danding School. When Muyu asked for directions, they just looked at Muyu as if he was an idiot. They thought that Muyu was asking them for a challenge, so they ignored Muyu. Muyu himself was baffled. He didn't seem to have offended these people, did he? It was no wonder that he didn't know. The Alchemy Pavilion was a sacred place in the eyes of every Alchemy Cauldron School disciple. It was a place that everyone yearned for. As a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect, there wasn't a single person who didn't know where it was. This was because everyone had a chance to visit the Pill Scripture Pavilion when they entered the sect. However, the Alchemy Pavilion wasn't a place where anyone could enter as they wished. Only those with outstanding talents had the qualifications to enter. And which one of these outstanding talents wasn't known by everyone? He had never seen this unfamiliar face before, so he was probably some new bumpkin. How could he have gotten the chance to enter the Alchemy Pavilion? Who are you? You want to go to the Alchemy Mantra Pavilion? Even if I tell you, you won't be able to go. Just go back and cultivate. When Muyu asked for direction for the third time, this tall, Danding faction disciple glanced at Muyu and then left. Muyu rolled his eyes. How do you know I can't go in? Unfortunately, that person had already walked far away. He didn't give Muyu a chance to explain. Muyu sighed. He had just arrived and was unfamiliar with this place. It was inevitable that he would run into a wall everywhere. He wondered whether he should go back and bring the dead tree out to lead the way, or he should go to Kailai and ask for a map of the Pill Cauldron sect. However, the dead tree didn't like to be carried around by Muyu. He felt that relying on his disciple every day was very shameful. He used to be very arrogant and looked down on other people in the Pill Cauldron sect. But now that he had no cultivation, it was very embarrassing for him to stay in the Pill Cauldron sect. Therefore, he didn't go out if he could. As for Kailai, because he wanted to go to the second layer of heaven, the second layer of heaven was filled with powerful demon beasts. Even an out-of-body stage cultivator might die if they were a little careless, let alone nascent soul stage disciples. Therefore, Kailai was grounded by his master for the past few days and forced to learn a lot about survival in the wild. Junior brother, do you want to go to the Pill Scripture Pavilion? Just when Muyu decided to go back and bring the dead tree out to lead the way, a mellow voice sounded behind Muyu. Muyu looked back. It was a cultured and elegant young man. He was 4 or 5 years older than Muyu. He was wearing the exclusive robe of the Pill Cauldron sect. He looked like a polite scholar. His elegant temperament was very similar to Qingyan. Greetings, senior brother. I want to go to the Pill Scripture Pavilion, but I got lost. I wonder if senior brother can tell me the specific location of the Pill Scripture Pavilion. Muyu asked very politely. Junior brother, are you new? But why do I feel that you look a little familiar? I know all the senior and junior brothers who can enter the Pill Scripture Pavilion. Why have I never seen you before? The other party was a little surprised. Muyu didn't know what a senior and junior brother who can enter the Pill Scripture Pavilion was. He always thought that any Pill Cauldron sect disciple could enter the Pill Scripture Pavilion. As for whether he looked familiar or not, Muyu didn't know. When he first came to the Pill Cauldron sect, he didn't know any other Pill Cauldron sect disciples except for Kailai and Mingwei. My name is Muyu. I'm a first disciple of Elder Dead Tree. I wonder if you've heard of me? Muyu said, so it's junior brother Muyu. My name is B. Winshuan. I'm from the Sect Masters branch. No wonder I feel that you look familiar. A year ago, junior brother made a lot of noise on the floating immortal island. At that time, I was lucky enough to see junior brother from afar. Junior brother is really a genius. With the strength of the Jindan period, all the nascent soul stage disciples in the cultivation world couldn't do anything to you. You are really a role model for our generation. B. Winshuan praised. Muyu was embarrassed by B. Winshuan's praise. When he was on the floating immortal island, he remembered all the nascent soul stage geniuses who had besieged him, but he had never seen Bi Wenshuan. Presumably, Bi Wenshuan wasn't among the people who had besieged him. Muyu smiled modestly. "Senior brother, you praise me too much." However, he suddenly remembered that he had heard of Bi Wenshuan's name before. Back then, Kai Lai had listed a lot of alchemy geniuses that he needed to pay attention to, and Bi Wenshuan's name was one of them. "Junior brother, this way please." Bi Wenshuan wasn't as arrogant as the other disciples of the Danding sect. This made Muyu have a good impression of him. He led the way in front and said as he walked, "I heard from Sect Master that Junior brother is also here for the 2 spots to go to the realm beyond heaven. This makes Senior brother feel a lot of pressure." Muyu asked doubtfully, "Senior brother B, are you also participating in the competition? Aren't you one of the confirmed candidates?" Bi Wenshuan shook his head. "Senior brother is untalented. The person who has already been confirmed is Junior brother Lien Tianyu, not me." Muyu didn't know who Lien Tianyu was, but he was definitely a genius like Kai Lai who had been chosen by the sect. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been selected internally. Although Bi Wenshuan said this, Muyu felt that he was very confident in this spot. They were both disciples of the sect master, but the spot was not given to him, but to Lien Tianyu. Normally, anyone would feel a bit jealous. However, Muyu didn't hear any hint of dissatisfaction from his tone. However, he remembered that the medicine master had given the spot to Kai Lai instead of Xiaohua. Xiaohua had entered the sect earlier than Kai Lai, and his grasp of alchemy techniques was also more proficient than Kai Lai's. The medicine master had considered letting Xiaohua participate in the competition. This way, he would have a better chance of obtaining the second spot than Kai Lai. In that case, Bi Wenshuan should be the same as Xiaohua. He should be more outstanding than the so-called Lien Tianyu. "That's really a pity," Muyu said. He didn't want to know how powerful Lien Tianyu was. No matter how powerful he had already obtained the qualifications. What he wanted to pay attention to was the person who was competing with him. This person was able to enter the alchemy pavilion, which meant that he wasn't an ordinary person. Bi Wenshuan told Muyu some rules as they walked. For example, this alchemy pavilion wasn't a place where one could enter whenever they wanted. Once they entered, they could only enter again next month. The scriptures inside couldn't be borrowed, nor were they allowed to be copied. They could only be read directly and memorized as much as they could. This was to prevent the precious alchemy techniques from being leaked to other sections. Moreover, the time to enter was only 2 hours. Bi Wenshuan led Muyu past an alchemy room and arrived in front of a fresh and simple pavilion. The pavilion had 4 floors. The architectural style was dignified and elegant, full of the vicissitudes of history. It was as if it had experienced the baptism of thousands of frost and rain. It was solemn and serene, making it impossible for anyone to have any blasphemous thoughts. This was the Alchemy Pavilion, the most important place of the alchemy sect. It was also the holy land in the eyes of every alchemy sect disciple. Muyu took a step forward and immediately felt a tremor from the depths of his soul. It was deliberately trying to intimidate them. Muyu knew that this was the pressure from the array formation guarding the alchemy pavilion. It was a warning to newcomers not to have any covetous thoughts. Muyu had learned a little about array formations, but he knew that he couldn't see through such a profound array formation. The sense of oppression only flashed and didn't last for long. This array formation was just a warning to newcomers. It didn't have any intention of rejecting them. These disciples who came and couldn't do anything. It's better not to make too much noise in here. The pavilion elder is very quiet, Bi Wenshuan kindly reminded. Muyu nodded. The elder guarding the pavilion definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Muyu didn't dare to be rash. Besides, the alchemy sect was a place filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Muyu wasn't stupid enough to think that the only true masters were the 5 people led by Taoist Cloud Core. Muyu and Bi Wenshuan walked into the loft. The loft's door was open, and the inside was very bright. What greeted their eyes were rows upon rows of neatly arranged bookshelves. These bookshelves were filled with simple and unadorned scrolls. These were the alchemy scriptures that many disciples would fight to see. Senior, this is my token. B. When Xuan handed over a red token. Muyu then noticed that there was a white-haired old man on the left. He was crouched in a pile of messy books and seemed to be studying something. If it weren't for B. Wen Xuan's reminder, Muyu would have ignored this old man. Don't be noisy. Come out in 2 hours. Go in, the old man said without raising his head. He didn't even have the interest to look at the token. Muyu had just taken out the token given to him by Deadwood when he found that it seemed a little redundant, so he put it back. Then let's part ways here. B. Wen Xuan cupped his hands towards Muyu. He obviously came here often and knew where the books he was looking for were. He directly walked to the left and disappeared among the rows of bookshelves. Muyu originally wanted to say hello to the old man, but seeing that the old man didn't seem to want to talk to him, he casually turned to the bookshelf on the right. Deadwood only told Muyu to look for a book called Quick Pill, but didn't tell Muyu which bookshelf to look for it. Muyu casually fumbled around and looked around. The old man only gave him 2 hours, so he had to hurry. The alchemy pavilion was very large and had a rich collection of books. Muyu glanced around and roughly counted 10,000 books. With so many alchemy scriptures, it was estimated that the essence of alchemy in the entire 3 continents was condensed here. Muyu felt that he was lucky to be able to come here. The bookshelves were marked with some simple numbers. Muyu didn't know what they meant. He walked straight to a row of bookshelves marked with 5. He hesitated for a moment and reached out to take a blue book. However, the moment his hand was about to touch the book, an inexplicable force pushed his hand away. What's going on? Muyu tried a few more times and found that his hand couldn't touch the book at all. It was as if there was a strange array that isolated the aura of the book. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.